Why is the first page of a book so important? Why is the first line one of the most crucial moments for a new reader? Why is that idea so incredibly consequential? We're going to be hopping into this and more in today's first page promise. Welcome to the Right Now community. I'm Kaufman, and I'm on a mission to help the unpublished writers of the world with the process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to be an author. So come join because we're starting right now. All right, beautiful. And if you're watching this on the replay, don't worry. I got you covered. After the stream ends, time codes will be added to the stream so that way you can hop to the part of the stream that brings you the most value. All right, beautiful. So, most important, do you want feedback on the first page of your book? Submit now. Posted in the YouTube description is the submission link. There's that. Let me actually drop it here in the chat for you. So it is posted in both the YouTube description and the YouTube chat linked at above. Beautiful. So there we go. So as we can see, I have the first page promise. Here's the submission form. I highly recommend you submit now if you want feedback and or some editing on the first page of your story. Awesome. So what are we going to be getting into today? So we're going to be breaking up our first page promise stream into three separate portions. We're first going to start off with what is a breakdown of what makes a first page promise. What is the first page promise? We're going to go into the psychology behind the reader and behind what it really means to capture the reader in their first experience with your authorship. And then we're going to be hopping into my first page with Last Scarecrow. We're going to read it, and let me tell you, it has some problems. It definitely has some problems. So I'm actually going to take my first page through a live editing to show you just how much that like my first page sucks. But my first page I wrote January 1st, almost 265 days ago when I first started the book. So I'm going to show you how you can turn a first page into something that really shines. And then we're going to be reviewing your first pages of your books. So make sure that you submit right now if you want feedback and a live edit for the first page. All right, awesome. And let me just hop into the comments. LeMay, welcome, welcome. We have all of our regulars and Courtney, what's up? ML in the chat and Miss Marta finally sent the English version. I went to go check the submissions and Marta sends me a submission and I'm like, Marta, I don't read Polish. I'm like, this might be a little difficult to read something in Polish. Unfortunately, not a language I have yet to master. Awesome. Hey, what's up, Soul? Chat Soul in the house. Welcome, my friend. Looking forward to diving into the first page of your story as well. And Mr. Mike Edwards, pleasure, my friend. Happy to have you in here. We are looking forward to an exciting podcast episode tomorrow. It's going to be so exciting. Hey, what's up, Avalon? Welcome, my friend. We are just getting started. Want to welcome everyone to the community. And once again, we only have a couple first pages submitted so far. So because of that, I actually highly recommend if you want feedback on the first page of your story, submit now. The submission link is posted in the YouTube chat and down in the description. We'll be doing that in just a little bit. So submit now before they get too plentiful. Okay, perfect. So we're going to be starting off with what is the dynamics behind the first page? Why is a first page important? Now, as I am pulling this up, I first want to pose a question to you. We're going to be reviewing and looking at some best-selling novels, some classic novels, and we'll be looking at the first pages of just some novels that really stand out. But I want to look at first pages of books that you care about. So I'm starting a Q&A right now. What is your favorite classic, mainstream, or best-selling novel? drop it in the comments, because when we get to the novel review portion, I'll choose your novels that you liked and we will dig into the first page and we'll see, why did the first page of this classic, mainstream, or best-selling novel work? Drop your answers in the comments. I would love to hear from you. All right, beautiful. So without further ado, and Mr. Engineer, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you in here, my friend. We'll be getting into the first page reviews in just a little bit. You know what, Marta, my friend, Harry Potter is one of the novels that I had chosen. Earth's Children, a good one. So keep those books coming. And if we get too many, we'll vote. We'll vote on our favorites. We'll see how many first pages we can review together. Okay, so without further ado, let's hop into the psychology and the dynamics behind the first page. Why are first pages important? Why is the first page why can it be the most monumental experience of your story for a new reader? The reason being, you've done all the work to pull somebody into your story. You're competing against an entire other genre. You're competing against many, many other authors in your genre and in your category. You go to the bookstore, you see all the books, you go onto Amazon, you go onto a book website, and there are so many options. Somebody chooses your book, or somebody is interested because they like the cover art. They like the cover art because then they want to go check out the blurb itself. They're like, oh, okay, what's this book about? Okay, it sounds like that it has elements I would like. And then they check out the blurb, and then they go into starting the book. They're like, okay, I'm going to try it out. Now, a lot of times, new readers don't always try out new writers because they want to make sure that they're not going to be losing time. Some readers who are doing like a lot of reading, like I know Courtney, I know you're an avid reader. Some readers are willing to try new authors out all the time, but it always changes, right? Because what we don't want to happen is we don't want to start a new book, and we don't want to be like, oh, well, there's like grammar problems in here, and then the story just doesn't make sense. It was a cool idea, but then it just, execution sucks. So we don't want to waste that time, which is why the first page promise is so important. When a reader comes into your story, you're making a promise with them that your initial setup, the initial expectation, the first appearance is going to match their expectations. Now, of course, this is laid out over the first chapter, over the first couple chapters generally, but first impressions are so critical. If you can pull off an incredible first impression from the very first page, your reader is going to be so hooked into your story. Even if you have some inherent problems with the characters, the world, or the plot, if the first impression is amazing, they're going to be more willing to go along with you into the journey. This is what I call a first page promise. The 4 elements of what makes a first page promise are the hook, the setup, the expectation, and we'll get into the 4th one in just a little bit. So we're going to be thinking about, what is the hook? Now, when we think about what is the hook of a first page, right? That is the thing that happens. That is like something interesting, something unique. What is a unique thing? What is a unique proposition that happens in your book? What is something that a reader might not expect? What is some type of setup that they might not be anticipating? Because what it does is it's creating some type of shock, it's creating some type of surprise, it can create some type of expectation. Now, of course, not all writers do this, right? And a lot of books are successful without really making the first page incredible, but by making your first page incredible, you are making that first impression, you're doing something that they have not seen before. And that's the goal, right? Think about your average reader. Think about how many books the average reader reads in a lifetime. Think about the books that have stood out to you. And then you want to think about, okay, so if there's a book that stood out to me, I want the first moment, like that first moment stood out for some way, shape, or form. Maybe it was an initial character. Maybe it was a save the cat moment. Maybe something crazy happened to the character, or maybe something about the world was awesome. Now think about if you could achieve that in the reader's very first experience. This is what the hook is. The hook is doing a thing, doing creating either an action or creating an idea or creating a moment that surprises and delights your reader. So that way you can create an emotional reaction. If you can create, and I promise you this is part of the first page promise. If you can create an emotional reaction on the first page of your reading experience, you are going to get some readers, my friend. I promise you, absolutely promise you. Create an exciting moment and you will hook your readers in. And that is the first part of the first page promise. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. I would love to chat through them. When you think about first pages of books you've read, are there any hooks that have really stood out to you? Are there any hooks that have been like, you know what, that is bomb.com. That is the beginning of a really, really good book. All right. And let's see. I'm just pulling up here, hopping into the chat. Awesome. It looks like we got some really good book suggestions, which is awesome. We're going to be coming back to our book suggestions in just a little bit. Courtney, you lost me on mainstream. And I think this is why, right? So this is why I think of that balance, because I think of the three categories of books, right? I think of our classic novel, which those were generally not a contemporary novel, but they're generally put in the classic category, written by authors of a previous age. And those books were standout in their genre for some way, shape, or form. Classic novels are classic and done well for a reason. Then there's some mainstream novels, which accrue mainstream success because maybe their popularity. And then there's best-selling novels, right? And best-selling novels is legitimately chosen by the market. People spend money. Maybe it's a very successful marketing campaign, but best-selling novels are still working for a reason. Let's check out some manga too. You know what, Marta? That would actually be really interesting. The only thing is I might not have the setup to pull manga up. Maybe because with manga, I mean, possibly. If there was a way for me to pull up the first pages of manga, I could potentially do that. Oh, awesome. I love your recommendations. It looks like we got a couple book recommendations. It's excellent. Let's see. I will tend to read the first page to see if it grips me. Right? Right? Because we want to know if the first page is going to be awesome. We don't want to read 600 pages and it sucks. We don't want to read 5 chapters and it sucks. Like, yeah, I feel you. I've been there so many times. Or when you're going through, if you go through a library and you pick up a book and you're just like, okay, oh, that blurb's interesting. Let me just open the page. Let me just start reading. People do that all the time. They start reading from the first chapter because they want to know if the expectations are they want to know if the expectations is going to match what they're looking for. I have read the same novel since 2019. And you know what? A lot of us totally do that, right? We have our favorites and we read them time and time and time again. Engineer, I can tell you the number of times I have reread Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, Harry Potter, to name some of my favorites, some of my classics, Don Quixote. Absolutely loved Lord of the Flies, sci-fi. Ender's Game was always a favorite. Some of the Star Wars ones. I was like thinking of other ones off the top of my head. Brave New World, 1984. Absolutely love the dystopian. 100% agree. I feel like I stay with self-published brands, new, less press authors. I could totally see that because if there's a new author, then there might not be as much, they don't have much catalog, so they don't have a guaranteed consistency. What you don't want to happen is you don't want to read the first book of an author and be like, wow, this is the coolest book I've ever read. And then they never come out with another book. Whereas if an author's come out with 5 books, you're like, okay, I'm guaranteed they're probably going to come out with the next book eventually. You like when the first page isn't lore dumping. Okay. So essentially, when it's not just telling you everything about the world, sometimes that can happen a lot in the fantasy genre. Excellent. Mike, another absolutely good book. Mary, excellent. So mine is the first paragraph too much of an info dump. Thank you. Thank you for that. I will definitely pull it up. Awesome. I saw a couple of responses here. So when we get to it, I'll pull it up and I'll look at it. I think my first page is just all right, guys. I'm going to do editing and I'm going to be harsh on my own first page because I want to show you how harsh we should be on our own first pages because it's a first expectation. Let's see. It's awesome. Courtney, like you don't want to know what mine is. Oh, I need Readers Anonymous with how many books you've read. There are sites to read manga online. So if there is a manga that you guys would recommend and you guys want to send me the sites, Soul, absolutely, that would help me out. If you want to drop a site, if you want to drop a site link for me, I'd be happy to do it. If you guys want me to check out a first page of a manga, that's of course a little more visual, so that could be super cool. I'd be open to that. I would say just of whatever manga we do, let's do one that's like a very popular, best-selling one. So yeah, because I mean manga, like you have to capture them with pictures immediately. That's a different one. Exactly. We also don't want to waste money. Who wants to spend $5, $10, $15 on a book and it sucks and you only read one chapter? That sucks. Sure, maybe not that much money in the grand scheme of things, but nobody likes to waste money. None of us like to waste money. I can totally resonate with that, Courtney. Mike, I completely agree. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being lost in books. It's like any other hobby, right? We get lost in the pages, in the stories, in the characters. Courtney is going to be starting our Book Readers Anonymous right now group eventually. Let's see, Mary. I own the ones I love. I do too. My favorites are always on my bookshelf. So far, it's over 500 in my library. Most are older. That's incredible, my friend. A true reader. You absolutely know when you check out somebody's room and you have the bookshelf full of books or wherever their library is, and you're like, they're definitely a reader. All right, perfect. So with the hook, let's get into what is the second part of the first page promise. So with the hook is we want to create a thing, right? Now, our second part of the first page promise is the setup. What is the setup? We want to make sure that we are setting up an interesting setting, scenario, or moment that the reader isn't expecting. Well, the hook is about creating something unexpected, doing a thing, doing a save the cat moment, doing an action, doing something crazy that creates an emotional expectation. The setup is about what is the scene? What is this environment? What is this going to look like with the details and with the context? We want to make sure that we are setting up something that's not just fun, but something that is delivering on the expectation and the promise you set by your blurb. If we are going to write a blurb that talks about a lone knight on a quest to save his princess, his damsel in distress, and fight the dragon, if the first page starts off in space, I might not be very interested. I promised an expectation in the blurb, but then the setup of the scenario didn't match that. I'm like, how come this is in space, but I want to read about a knight on a quest to read a dragon? A space adventure could be great, but I didn't deliver that setup as I promised. So we have to make sure that the setup delivers on some element of the blurb, the book cover, or something that we have advertised about the book itself. That is so important. If you do not deliver on the setup, you could have an incredible story, but your readers will read the first couple pages and I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. But maybe you're just like, okay, I started off with the prologue because I needed to set up the evil Lord dark lord of everything in his evil realm and his castle, and it kind of has this space vibe, but it's actually in this fantasy world. But then the reader reads it and they're like, well, this they don't think that's what it is, but the problem is you just did the wrong setup. You did the wrong setup for your story and you lost the reader before it began. So that is why the setup is so important. Have you ever read a setup for a book where you read the blurb and then you read the first page, you read the first couple pages, maybe the first chapter, and you're like, this doesn't even match at all. Has that ever happened to you? I would love to hear. Drop it in the comments. I'm kind of curious, like, how many times have you read a first page and the setup just sucks? Like, I think that's definitely happened to me a number of times when I'll go into like a bookstore and you'll pick up the book and it's like, this hurts. This hoits. Oh man, awesome. Let me hop back in here. Let's see. That's pew. Mike, GOT I enjoyed, but I didn't think I would go back and read them. I enjoyed GOT a lot, and I think it's because I really enjoyed the writing style. But then that was also before Game of Thrones even came out as a show. So I was a fan when it was still just a wee best-selling novel. Dune has a very good beginning. Dune was epic at the start, but then it gets a little strange. Yeah, because they focus so much on world building. They do a lot of world building in that book, and it's very drawn out. It's just a very, very drawn out. I almost challenge if a lot of the elements of the world building were that necessary, but it's been so long since I read Dune. I could see that. Lore dumps can be fun, but like it's the first page. I don't want to know about Duke as the 55th. You're like, all right, I do want to know about a world, but you got to hook me into the story first. You got to make sure that things are fun and that I want to be in the journey before I learn about the world. I could totally see that, engineer. I need to hit the comma button better. I know I struggle. It's how the keyboards are. Engineer, like I tried to avoid that in my personal novel. I try to mix some lore with actions from characters. And there is a way to do lore. I know with fantasy, a lot of times writers tend to do portions of lore in the prologue, or they will do it once the character and the world is set up. There is a way to go about that. Absolutely. Hey, what's up, Charlie? Welcome to the stream. Welcome. And we got Tiara, thanks for hopping in, my friend. Good to have you in here. Chainsaw Man, first page, both captured me and made me pity the protag. Ooh, interesting. Chainsaw Man, that makes me think that's either going to be some type of manga or horror novel. That might be a good one to check out. Let's see, Courtney. I bought a book without reading a sample because the blurb was so great, right? Okay. And this, like, some people could do that, right? Which is why the blurb was so important. And for those of you who, right, you need to practice writing blurbs, make sure down in the YouTube description down below, I have a list of videos. The blurb and pitch fest was one we did about a month ago. That was a great stream if you want to do a review of blurbs. That has happened to me. I thought the blurb should have been for another book. Where you read it, you thought the blurb should have been for another book and it just wasn't what it was. Hence why we have to deliver on the setup. That's why the setup is so important. So clearly as readers, this has happened to you where you've read the blurb and maybe the blurb's been amazing, but you read the blurb and you checked it out and the setup just sucked. That's why the setup is so important. And before we hop into the third one, a couple call outs. If you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. I'm here every day with the Right Now community because I'm on this mission to help writers with the process, lifestyle, and mindset that it takes to be a published author. Today is day 265 of consecutive writing live streams. We have something going on every day, whether you want to be involved in writing sprints, whether you want to join our active writing community, whether you want to come join our live workshops about book blurbs, about first pages, or whether you just want to sit back and you want to watch some guest author interviews. The Right Now community has it all. So tap that follow button, tap that subscribe button, because when we hit 500, we're almost there. We're less than 30 subscribers away. I'll be launching the Right Now Discord channel. So tap those subscribe buttons and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, beautiful. And once again, if you want feedback on the first page of your book, the link, the submission link is at the top of the YouTube comments section. It's also posted at the top of the YouTube description. So submit now. It looks like we have a number of responses coming in, so that is awesome. And we'll be hopping into your responses in just a little bit. What we will be doing is we're going to be doing a live critique and a live edit. I'll edit the stories with you, so that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, perfect. And then we are now going to hop into the third. What is the third part of the first page promise? The third part of the first page promise. So, part one, fourth parts. We have the hook, the setup, and the third is the expectations, which we started diving into. Why are the expectations of your first page promise important? If you set up an expectation for the reader with the book or the cover, the cover or the blurb, and the expectations do not match, your reader will definitely not read the book. I know a couple of you have touched into that in the comments, and that is definitely happened to you before, right? So when we think about the three, right? The hook, we want to do something crazy the reader does not expect. Setup, we want to create a setup. We want to create a setting that is unique to the world and that is still serving on what the reader may be expecting. The expectation value, though, is its own thing because we have to be clear. If we are writing a horror novel, if we are in the thriller horror genre, and we start off with a story about a knight in a fantasy land fighting dragons, that's probably going to be a turnoff for them. That might not be something that could be a horror type genre. Especially if we set up a blurb and the blurb does not deliver on that promise. We need to make sure that our first page promise delivers on the expectation that we set up in the cover and the blurb. Simple as that. Does the first page deliver on the cover and blurb? Now, let's say that you want to set up a unique location. Maybe you want to set up the villain. Maybe you want to set up some unique location, maybe a little world building. That's all right. The question you have to ask yourself is, how is this first chapter, how is this prologue going to set the expectations and the stage for the rest of my novel? How's it going to deliver on the genre expectations? How is it going to deliver on my book, cover, and blurb expectations? Accurately. You can do something fun. You can do something the reader's not expecting, but you just have to be clear with yourself and reading it. You're like, okay, I could see that this first page it could match the initial expectation for the book that I've set up. So important. So that's why expectations are such an important factor of the first page promise. Oof, man, I love it. Love it. Love it. And we are going to hop into the fourth reason. What is the fourth reason that a first page promise is so important? Reason number 4, the payoff. The payoff is the fourth major reason of the first page promise. We have to make absolute sure that not only do we set up the expectations for our reader, not only do we have to make sure that we're doing a cool hook, we're doing a cool setup that makes sense, we're creating expectation, we have to make sure that the payoff delivers on the expectations, the hook, the setup, and the expectations. We have to make sure that whatever we have promised delivers. And not only do we want it to deliver, we want it to go above their expectation. Because once again, If you can make your reader feel something, especially on the first page, you are going to have them hooked as a lifelong reader. If you can really pull them in and really make them love your writing on the first page, the payoff surpasses their expectations. And that is why the payoff is so important. I promise you. You know that moment. I want to challenge you with this. Think about the last book that you read, the last favorite book that you experienced. Think about one of your early moments with the book. Do you remember that first time, that first moment where you really fell in love with it? Or maybe you're like, hey, you know what? I kind of like this book. Maybe it was a character. Maybe it was the world kind of like clicked together. Like, wow, yeah, that's actually kind of cool. Like dragons and portals and like this dark magic. Like, yeah, I'm down. That sounds fun. Or maybe it was like a moment, like you're the hero, like something crazy happened to them. Like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. Think about that moment. Think about that key, that individual proponent, that component of the story. And then ask yourself, you felt some type of emotional connection. How do you now copy that and then make that your own and create that same similar emotional expectation, commitment thing in your story? If, and I promise you this, if you can create an emotional connection, thing, moment in your first page, your reader will love and will believe in the first page promise. All right, beautiful. So that is the 4 parts of the first page promise. It's very straightforward, very simple, and not complicated at all, right? At heart, we need to create something within our first page promise that has a fun experience, that creates something exciting, that does something new, that is fresh, that is interesting and engaging, and we want to make sure that we do not lose our reader on the first page. So important. Ah, beautiful. So let's see, engineering. I hope mine isn't too far down. I have a limited resource called time, and I love time commentary. I totally understand that. Time is the one resource none of us can get back, my friend. So I completely understand where you're coming from. WTC, like, unless the dragon is corrupted and has wiped out the knight's family in front of him in gory details. I mean, I that sounds like an interesting first page, actually, WTC. If the setup is a fantasy genre, but okay, here's the thing, because we're talking about horror, right? So it's like horror does very rarely do we have a fantasy setting take place in the horror genre. 9 times out of 10, horror tends to take place in the real world for the horror genre. And that's just the main, let's just say like main horror genre. Now for like horror fantasy, sure. But most of the time, the expectations with the horror genre tends to be that it's a horror story that takes place in the real world or some variation or reality or similar or some crazy dimension of the real world. Once you start adding more fantastical elements, if there was a dragon in the first page, I would think like, okay, this is probably like a dark fantasy horror, right? If I added a robot killing somebody on the first page, I'd be like, okay, this is probably like sci-fi horror, and then less horror. But that'd be a really interesting first page. If on the first page you have a corrupted dragon killing a knight's family, I'm like, down. Dark fantasy horror? Let's do it. I'm like, that sounds like a cool story. Let's see. Jared, I did something funny. I took a pic of the first page of Zero and translated the dialogue for you. Awesome. Thank you, Marta. I appreciate that. I may have failed to do some of those on my first page, honestly, considering just rewriting the whole thing. And I'm actually going to show you, engineer. We're actually going to be doing this. So I'll show you with my first page because I don't think my first page is very good. So let's hop into the next part of the stream. We're going to be hopping into some live first pages. So let's see what your guys's book suggestions were. Let me hop into the comments. Awesome. So it looks like we had a number of good suggestions. So of course, my original ones, I was like, okay, let's do. I know Game of Thrones and Harry Potter are always two popular first best-selling ones that I know work. So what we're gonna do is I'll start off with let's do the first page of Harry Potter. We'll start off with Harry Potter, and then let's vote. Let's vote on some of these other ones. So we got. Ooh, we got some fun ones. We have Earth's Children, Clan of the Cave Bear. We have Raymond E. Feist, Magician. Murder on the Orient Express. I actually think I want to do that because mysteries almost always have to have a good first page because you have to pull the reader in with whatever the caper is that needs to be solved. Mysteries, reader for the mystery genre or the it's kind of like thriller, but the mystery genre, readers have a high expectation that you're serving them the something that they can start trying to solve as quick as possible, whether it's a murder mystery, whether it's some type of mystery. So Murder on the Orient Express would probably actually be a good one. Let's see, currently reading A Darker Shade of Magic. Ooh, another fun magic one. Chainsaw Man First Page both captured me and made me pity the protagonist. Awesome. So we have, I know Agatha Christie is a great one. WTC. What would a story about Jared talking some out on the first page? What would that be about? I think this could be a comedy. It'll start. Okay, this will be my pitch to all you guys. This is the story we'll write. It'll be like the Princess Bride, but the starting scene will start with Old Man Kaufman, and he'll be reading the story. It'll be Old Man Cough, and then the evil Carriage Hoffman will come in and be the villain. And then they will have to go on a journey and save the last scared crow. I think that'll be amazing. Let's see. So, okay. So let me pull up my stuff. So I have the first pages here. All right, perfect. So so what we're going to do is we're just going to read the first page of it. And then we'll start off with Harry Potter because I know Harry Potter is obviously a bestseller for a reason. And then we'll hop into one of your suggestions. So, let's hop into Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Okay. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Lived. Mr. and Miss Dursley of number 4 Private Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. Miss Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbors. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion, there was no finer boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret. And their greatest fear was that somebody would discover it. They didn't think that they could bear it if anyone found out about the Potters. Miss Potter was Miss Dursley's sister, but they hadn't met for several years. And we are going to stop there because that's roughly where the end of the first page ends. So, when we think about that, what did you guys think about that first page? So, when we think about that, was there something interesting about it? Okay. So what it does is it creates an interesting tone, right? We have something with these characters called the Dursleys, and their tone is it's very comical. It's comical in a sense, right? Because they were the last people you expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious. So we are already setting up the expectation that there is something strange about the world. But our main character, or not the main, but our initial characters that are set up, they do not hold with that nonsense. So already we have created an obstacle. We've created a conflict of interest in the first paragraph. It literally took a paragraph to create a conflict. Strange world, these normal people who don't believe in that nonsense. That is fun. And that's crazy because it creates two conflicting ideas. And that's just in the first paragraph. And then we get the description of them. The Dursleys, like, okay, we got the dad, and then we got Mr. Dursley and Miss Dursley, and they touch upon little Dudley. And then the third paragraph, we get the introduction of the Potters, right? So already on the first page, expectation has been delivered, right? So we got the four elements have been delivered. We got the hook. We got two different worlds competing. We got the setup of, okay, there could be a mysterious world. We got the expectations from the blurb. And I'm not going to go into the blurb right now, but we know that the blurb talks about Harry Potter and his adventure in Hogwarts. So, like, okay, so that's probably what this world is about. And then we got the payoff. We got something fun, and we felt like, okay, this could be interesting. Already, I'm like, okay, I could be intrigued. It doesn't have to be an extreme emotion, but it created some type of intriguing emotion. And I would say that Harry Potter definitely paid off on the expectation of the promise. Yeah, I would say it definitely paid off on that expectation. So that was definitely a really, really good one. Okay, so let's see. Let's hop into another one. So let me pull up. I want to pull up Murder on the Orient Express. I think that is actually going to be a really good opening. Murder on the Orient Express. All right, the Queen of Mystery, Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express. All right, let's see. And we will get perfect. Page one. So, Murder on the Orient Express, page one, a mystery. Awesome. Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. So, first page one, an important passenger on the Taurus Express. It was 5 o'clock on a winter morning in Syria. Alongside the platform, oh, not that. It was 5 o'clock on a winter's morning in Syria. Alongside the platform at Aleppo stood the train grandly designated in railway guides as the Taurus Express. It consisted of a kitchen and dining car, a sleeping car, and two local coaches. By the step leading up into the sleeping car stood a young French lieutenant, resplendent in uniform, conversing with a small, lean man, muffled up to the ears, of whom nothing was visible but a pink-tipped nose and the 2 points of an upward curled mustache. It was freezingly cold, and this job of seeing off a distinguished stranger was not one to be envied. But Lieutenant Dubosc performed his part manfully. Graceful phrases fell from his lips in polished French, not that he knew what it was all about. And there was our first page. So what do you guys think? What do you guys feel about that? Let's see. So it delivered on the promise? I would say that it definitely delivered on the expectation. Clearly it's about a train, the Orient Express. So it makes sense that the setup is what is the train about, right? Okay. So we got the setup of it. I know that we've already gotten the expectation, just like, okay, obviously there's going to be a murder on this. They've set up the train. Clearly, the setup and the expectation. Now, the question I asked was there a hook? Was there something that really stood out about this first page? So I would say yes. I would say it's a very, very small expectation. I would say we start getting something interesting with this Lieutenant Dubosc. Performed his part manfully. It was freezing as cold, and this job of seeing off a distinguished stranger was not one to be envied. A distinguished stranger. They could have had it be a named character, but it's a distinguished stranger. And then we get the introduction of our lieutenant. Graceful phrases fell from his lips in polished French, not that he knew what it was all about. So we already get the setup for a character with some type of maybe intriguing intriguing thing, who has to really cater to the passengers of the train. Now, obviously, we know there's going to be a murder. So what we're doing is we're like, okay, well, is this stranger going to be murdered? Is Lieutenant DeBose going to be murdered? So what it is it's setting up some type of murdery expectation. And because the train did it, now first character that's introduced, we're like, okay, who's going to be murdered? What's going to happen? So I would say this sets it up. I would say the hook is in the middle, I would say. But because the title and the cover and the blurb are setting up for a murder, this already keeps the reader interested in the hook itself. And it's using the intrigue of the murder to pull the reader in. All right, perfect. So the murder was absolutely a great one. And let's try out another one. So what other stories do we have? Okay, so let's try out. Let's see. So we have a couple other ones. Let's see. Let's go. Let me actually check out. So I was intrigued by Chainsaw Man. I want to say that Chainsaw Man is a Japanese manga series. First page both captured me and made me pity the protagonist. So that looks like that's a manga. We'll pull up a manga right now. Chainsaw Man. Let's see if it's on here. Chainsaw Man, but have to make sure that I can show it on the stream. We'll see if we can pull up the very first chapter. All right, this is kind of funny. I could totally see why this would be appealing. All right, guys. So we'll pull up this manga for Chainsaw Man. So this is a manga. Clearly, guys, we kind of know what to expect from here. So this is clearly our first visual of it with a manga. Obviously, we got some. Clearly, it's called Chainsaw Man, so it's probably about him and his chainsaw. But we got some cute puppy, some puppy saw over here. That's kind of funny. So as we look at the first page, we think about newly serialized Chainsaw Man was 1.2 miles. The was 1.2 mil. The kidney I sold the other day. Cutting trees. I sold one of my balls too. How much was that again? 100 grand, wasn't it? 300 grand. My right eye was 60 grand a month. 38 million 40 yen, 40,000 yen. The reminder on the loan is, let's get to killing then. You know the drill, Pochita. Woof. Oh my goodness, this cracks me up so much. I think this actually works very well as a first. This works increasingly well. Why does this work so well? Read it backwards. Woof, go this way. Oh, that's right, because it's right to left, isn't it? I'm so used to reading left to right, but you're right. I forgot with manga, because I'm not a manga reader. It's always right to left. So then it would be cutting trees. It would start here, cutting trees. The kidney I sold the other day was 1.2 mil. Was 1.2 mils, 60 grand a month. Let's see, 300 grand. My right eye was 300 grand. I sold one of my balls too. How much was that again? 100 grand, wasn't it? The remainder on the loan is 38 million yen. Woof! You know the Joe Pochita. Let's get to killing then. Thanks for that, WTC. Shows literally just how long it's been since I've read a manga. Regardless, it's still pretty well done. It's very incredible, right? So clearly, when we think of our first page promise, it delivers on the hook is interesting, right? In the first page, we are already intrigued. He sold his right eye and one of his balls. Like, okay, guys, like if that's not a hook, I don't know what is. And clearly they have some type of, they're going to do some type of thing with the chainsaw. So the setup is already interesting. It pays off on clearly this expectation. We're getting this expectation on the very first page. The payoff clearly delivers on the expectation. So I would say this one, absolutely. absolutely pays off on a first page promise. Now, the difference with manga, right, is we also get, well, we aren't able to use as much words in the same way that books and scripts do. We are able, we get the visual boxes to be able to showcase the character. Because we get the visual and the narrative, or and the words, we get to balance it more, and then we get to decide how many pages or how many blocks per page we want to tell our story. Graphic novels and comics are always fun. Awesome. So that was definitely, that was a great one. Good, great suggestion. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see, what other one do we have here? Let's see, let's check your comments. So what other books we have? Mike Edwards. So Mike, it looks like you suggested a good one, Magician. So let's check out Magician. Ooh, I like the cover it already. I like the cover. Okay, so let's check this out. Let's pull up the first page. Thank you, Amazon, for letting us read the first page of these books. Although I do have to say, I love this cover art. I do absolutely love this color art. Oh wait, Magician, Apprentice. Interesting. The Kindle and the paperback both have different covers. I was like, interesting, and they have kind of slightly different names too. It looks like they came out with a new copy of the book. Okay, so let's show it up on the screen. So we have it here. So we have the Magician's Apprentice. When I pulled up Magician originally, right? So this was the one we had. I'm like, okay, we got keys. That's something going on here. This was for the Audible. And then when we went to the Kindle version, this is the one. Now we got Magician Apprentice, a novel. So it looks like, but it's book one of the saga, so it's the same book. It's just two different cover arts. But it's interesting that they added in a secondary abbreviation for this version of it. So, all right, so let's read the sample. Although I do have to say, once again, you guys know me very well. This has a dragon, so this is already a win for me. Everyone knows by now. All right, if there's a dragon on it, Kaufman's probably going to like it. Okay, so Magician Apprentice. Let's see. So we're going to get the first page. Now with ebooks, we kind of have to take a rough guesstimate on when the first page ends. All right, let's we go past the forward. We don't need the forward. Hopefully we can get the first chapter. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Magician. Storm. The storm had broken. Pug danced along the edge of the rocks, his feet finding scant purchase as he made his way among the tide pools. His dark eyes darted about as he peered into each pool under the cliff face, seeking the spiny creatures driven into the shallows by the recently past storm. His boyish muscles bunched under his light shirt as he shifted the sack of sand crawlers, rock claws, and crabs plucked from this water garden. The afternoon sun sent sparkles through the sea spray, swirling around him, as the west wind blew his sun-streaked brown hair about. Pug set his sack down, checked to make sure it was securely tied, then squatted on a clear patch of sand. The sack was not quite full, but Pug relished the extra hour or so that he could relax. Megar the cook wouldn't trouble him about the time, as long as the sack was almost full. Resting with his bag against a large rock, Pug was soon dozing in the sun's warmth. A cool, wet spray woke him hours later. He opened his eyes with a start, knowing he had stayed much too long. Westward over the sea, dark thunderheads were forming above the black outline of the Six Sisters, the small islands on the horizon. The roiling, surging clouds, with rain trailing below like some sooty veil, heralded another of the sudden storms common to this part of the coast in early summer. Awesome. And I feel like that would probably be about the first page. So when we think about the first page, did this deliver on our first page promise? So we get the setup for Pug. First off, the Pug's interesting, right? When I hear Pug, I think of the dog, the breed, pugs. So we get this up this first page. Now, obviously, it's called Magician. The secondary title is Magician's Apprentice. I'm back. It kicked me out of the stream for some reason. All right, let me throw back up the screen. So, as I was saying, yeah, the StreamYard kicked me out of the stream for a second, so I had to reload. I'm here. No worries, I'm here, my friends. Okay, so as we were looking at the first page, so Storm, I would say Pug did deliver on the promise. We have an interesting character. Okay, maybe he's the apprentice. We have a sack. His dark eyes dared about has appeared into each pool by the recently passed storm. So we're getting foreshadowing. Weather is generally used 9 times out of 10 for an element of foreshadowing. So, okay. So magician, we've maybe got some type of magic thing going on. So when we think about our first page promise, we think about, is there a hook? A storm. So essentially the author is basically using the storm as the hook. Like, okay, so the storm, something foreshadowing, great. I would challenge, I'm like, is the storm a strong enough hook? I'm like, that's one thing I would challenge. But you know what? Clearly it works well enough, the setup. So we have a boy, and I think what's interesting, and I think the thing that's unique is this sack. Pug set his sack down, checked to make sure it was securely tied, and squatted on a clear patch of sand. The sack was not quite full, but Pug relished the extra hours so that he could relax. So we're getting... Okay, so this is a very popular, or not a popular, but this is a writing device. Kind of like, I present you a mystery box. I present to you a mystery container. You don't know what's in the container, but I'm going to intrigue you because there's something mysterious about it. And that's what the author is doing with this. So the author is basically using the hook and the expectations for this mysterious sack. Maybe it's something that has to do with magicians, because we know magicians have what, like a bag of tricks or magic tricks, what at least our definition of magicians in the real world. So like, okay, he's referenced a sack, and now we've created expectations and intrigue. So I would say the hook would probably be a mix of maybe the storm or this bag. The setup, we had this boy basically sitting down and taking a nap. The setup, okay, and in the original title, Magician, I was like, okay, not sure. Magician's Apprentice, okay, this is a boy down on his luck. The setup would work. Expectations, okay, a mysterious sack. We don't know what's in it. Maybe it's something crazy. Maybe it's just his lunch bag. But the author does spend almost a paragraph on the first page talking about this sack. So clearly there's something important about the sack, or they want you to think there's something important about the sack, one of the two. So that they're doing some type of buildup. Now the payoff is, are we getting this emotional payoff? Maybe. I'm like, if I could be intrigued, if I'm intrigued enough by the mystery sack, like, okay, I want to know what's going to happen in this bag of tricks. We kind of go on till we get a little bit of world building. I'm like, okay, we set up the world. That's fine. So I would say once again, it works similar to Orient Express. I would say that this one plays way more into the expectations and an interesting hook. Well, Orient Express plays more into the setup and building up on a payoff of a murder mystery. So you see how they focus on different elements to pull the reader in onto the first page. So I think those are both really, really interesting things to look at. As you get further into it, maybe page 2 or 3, it is good for a hook. Okay, so that's actually good to know, Mike. Thanks for sharing. I highly recommend you read it. It's just a bag of food. Just a bag of food. We're fooled, which means that the hook is probably in page, as you shared, 2 or 3, right? But the way it's set up is it's set up as an intrigue. But especially if there's some type of thing that happens within the first 2 to 3 pages, the author is basically hoping that, like, okay, I'm pulling them in with the magician thing. They're going to read the first chapter. That's essentially what the author's hope and expectation is, or that the storm is a foreshadowing element. Like, oh, okay, the storm had broken. oh, wait, why did a storm just break? Is there something that crazy just happened? So they're going for a couple different expectations. I would be like, for like a hook on the first page, it's all right. But since you've read it, it sounds like they try for it on the second or third page. Maybe the hook would draw you in more if he had to risk his life in the storm to save the sack, to show its portent and hint at what would happen if he doesn't get it. I would agree. I think if there was a little bit more relevance to the sack, they could have done something a little bit more fun on the first page. But it sounds like that wasn't what their focus was. But clearly, it was still successful as a first chapter. And this is what's interesting, guys. The first page doesn't always have to be successful for building mainstream attention, because a lot of readers are willing to try a first chapter. But this is the truth. You are competing once your book is out there. The writing process, you're only competing with yourself. Let's remember that. The writing process, you compete with you and you only. Once the book is published, you are competing against the market. When you're competing against thousands of other writers, even more, you want to give yourself every advantage. You want to give yourself every opportunity. So that way you can absolutely pull readers in, which is why the first page promise is so, so important. You don't have to have an incredible first page to have a great book, but you should do everything in your power to make it as awesome and intriguing as possible. Absolutely. Okay, so we got some really good early initial ones. Perfect. I absolutely love that. So let's see, we did what? Harry Potter, Chainsaw, Murder, Magician. So we did 4. Awesome. 4 was a great, great, great start. Let's me think. Okay. I was going back and forth. Okay. So with those 4, I think that was good. We hit on a couple of interesting ones. Now, what we're going to do next, I'm going to hop into showing you on my book, The Last Scarecrow. So for those of you who haven't been with me since January 1st of 2024, and January 1st, 2024, I did not have anybody in the community yet. So unless anybody went back into January 1st, and it's not in the channel, because the first 15 days of the live stream were on my Facebook channel. So you'd have to go way, way back and see it. And I think I was streaming from my brother's place at the time, because I was in another area. So that was fun. But the very first stream, I got the image for the story Last Scarecrow. We're going to read the first page right now. You can tell me what you think of it, and we will see. What I'll do is I'll pull up that initial image picture. So we're going to read the first page. I'll show you how I would edit it, because I want you guys to see. I want you to see how you can edit the first page of your story and make it something that it could be way, way better. So while I'm pulling that up, a shout out to the art of writing. Do you want weekly tips to help you with writing better writing better stories, just improving your quality as a writing? The Art of Writing is a weekly newsletter. It'll give you announcements to the Right Now community and things that we're working on. It'll also give you articles, stories, and exercises to just help you make you a better writer and help you improve the book writing process. So subscribe right now. The link is down in the YouTube description. And Art of Writing, subscribe. Perfect. So subscribe for the Art of Writing newsletter. Perfect. So definitely subscribe if you're wanting tips and tricks to improve your writing. It's my fun little newsletter for the Art of Writing community. All right, perfect. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to hop into showing you how I would go about fixing the first page for my novel, The Last Scarecrow, and then we'll be diving into the submissions that you put up for your first pages of your stories. So make sure that if you want feedback, if you want a critique, if you want help on fixing the first page, submit right now. It's posted at the top of the YouTube description, or at the top of the YouTube comments, and also in the YouTube description. Okay, perfect. And let me pull up. So I was pulling up the image for Last Scarecrow, and I think I have it right. Yeah. All right. So for those of you who are used to coming to the stream, you're probably used to seeing this image all the time, right? It is obviously right here. Perfect, right? So you're used to this image, right? Why is this image important? Essentially, throughout the month of January, and yeah, I would say it is mostly January, I did a lot of free writes. I picked a random image and I wrote a free write off it. This was the image that I used to come up with the initial idea of Last Scarecrow. The first 2 chapters of the book, maybe the first 3, have to be rewritten because of the direction that I took the story in, and I made the determine of how I wanted to orient the story, probably between chapters 4 through 6. The first 3 chapters are probably the only chapters that I know for a fact have to be rewritten. The rest of the book is probably just going to be a lot more editing. So awesome. So there's that. And I'm going to pull up the Last Scarecrow. Awesome. We're done with that. All right. Perfect. So we got this all set up for you. And let's go pull up Last Scarecrow on the left, and we'll make this super easy. Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, so we got the Last Scarecrow. So I'm going to show you the first page for mine. And let me just remind you, I haven't looked at the first page of Last Scarecrow in a long time. It's probably been a good 4, 5, 6 months that I've actually read the first page. I thought about going back originally and be like, okay, well, I'll review the page before the stream. I'll edit it, make it look like it's something cool. But I wanted to take you through the process so that way you could use a strategy to help you in working on your first pages. Because I already know it's been so long since I've looked at it. I know without a doubt that it's not the first page that I want for the novel. Now that I fleshed out the entire world. That's a great question, Mike. I want to say I just pulled it up randomly. I think I just looked online. I'm like, cool fantasy images, and this was just one that came to mind. And I don't even think there's a scarecrow on it, which is kind of funny actually. As you look on it here, like I don't even think this is a scarecrow. When I look here, I'm like, I'll show us real fast. I don't even think there's a scarecrow on here. But when I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I really thought this was a scarecrow. I'm like, this is a scarecrow, so I'm gonna write a story about a scarecrow. Clearly, I wanted to write a story about a scarecrow. And then I was like, okay, well, what type of character could I write a story around that has never been done before that I could do better? Or not that has never been done, but what type of character could I create that I feel like I could do better? I kind of thought of this. I was like, I kind of like a road. I was like, okay, well, Wizard of Oz has like the lion, the scarecrow, and the Tin Man. I'm like, okay, are there any other predominant mainstream scarecrow characters outside of Wizard of Oz? And I was like, I don't think so from a scarecrow. I was like, okay, I think I can create a scarecrow character, and I can create a character that I think would broadly appeal and is very dynamic. And for those of you who don't know, I don't share this as often anymore, but one of my personal goals as a writer is to create a character that becomes like a popular mainstream character. Is that going to be Scarecrow? Maybe. Is that going to be 100 characters from now? Who knows? But that's my dream. My dream is to create a character which resonates and becomes so believable and so likable, because I just want to create a character that resonates with the world. And that's one of my personal missions. You're too authentic to test by editing before today. You know me well, Courtney. You know what's interesting, Marta, is I actually didn't even start using AI generation until February, March. When I started using the AI for my editing process, January, I literally just went online and I Googled fantasy image. And I just saw what images would pop up, and this was just one of them. Because that's what I did originally, but now this year AI has like made the process, oh my god, incredibly way easier. Like thankfully. Absolutely. Lately, I really connect with your first demon. Ooh, that's actually really good to know. I love my first demon character. And what's interesting is with our little antagonist, He's not in the first book very much. He's very, very intentionally supposed to be like a looming threat who doesn't really even become part of the core story until like the last act, until we're getting near the climax. But then by the time we get to the climax, he's literally in your face. He goes from being like this like ominous he goes from being like a fearful idea to does something really scary to this in your face like crazy character. I had so much fun with the first demon. Awesome. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's get into the last Scarecrow. So let's see how the first page turns out. Drum roll, please. Chapter 1, The First Field. Once upon a time, there was a scarecrow who was alone. His fellow scarecrows had been damaged, removed, and scared away over time. He was the last scarecrow. One day, a crow happened upon a straw hat, took it with his beak, and flew off into the winds. It was time for the last scarecrow to begin his journey. The last scarecrow stretched one arm and then the other for the first time since his stuffing. He twisted his neck, arched his back, and pulled one leg out of the dirt with all his might. With all the might he could muster. One leg came free. He repeated the process, but the second his other leg left the dirt, he lost balance and fell straw face first onto the dirt. He felt a strange new feeling that was foreign to him. Had he ever felt this way before? During his stuffing, he wondered at the beauty of coming to life. During his placement, he was excited about having a call. While on his watch, he felt pride for keeping the invaders away. And during the fall, he felt terror at the unknown. Interesting. I'm like, interesting. Yeah, I'm like, I know this chapter needs to be rewritten. Once upon a time, there was a scarecrow. Okay. So, and this is why I can already tell why this needs to be rewritten. Well, it needs to be rewritten because his character motivation has changed since I wrote this. Clearly, originally the goal of this was like, okay, scarecrow, the hat stolen, and then he comes to life. What I've changed now is that I want there to be more personality and I want it to be very clear. Now, if I think about the first page promise on this one, I'm like, this actually technically does pay off. There is the setup. The Scarecrow is literally on the first line. And the book is called The Last Scarecrow. So that setup technically does work. What's not really happening right now is like the hook that we have is like, okay, so right now the hook is either the crow flying off and taking his hat, or the last scarecrow and flew up into the winds. The last scarecrow stretched one arm on the other first time since his stuffing. And so I think I said it's something where he came to life. During his stuffing, he wondered at the beauty of coming to life. So he does think about his making, so to speak, but I don't think that this is strong enough. I think I do need to do subversion of expectations, but now that I know what his true background is, now that his character's fully fleshed out, this is just not his backstory. So and I've been thinking about this for a while. So if I was going to rewrite this, I knew that I wanted to start off with something funny. I wanted to pull the reader in immediately. No, actually, okay, I thought about this. I'm going to go with this. All right. So I knew that I wanted to do this. I knew that I wanted to do something with our lovable little crow. Now, as I think about it, I might adjust his wording, but I wanted the crow to be a parent. So I'm going to have something immediately. Wake up. He was blinded by the rising sun. He was blinded by the vibrant rays of the rising of a rising sun. He was blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun. And this is action opportunity since this world revolves so much around the weather. And since weather is such an important factor of this story, this tells me like, okay, I can actually probably do something unique with the weather, but it can be very subversive that it can be immediately from this first paragraph. So I know he'll be dealing with fire weather. Let's see. He was blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun. All right, this is what I'm going to do. So we'll play around with this. I'm not sure if this is what I want to do with this. So let's see. We'll do this and perfect. All right, so I'll do this. All right, so wake up. He was blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun. Okay. Okay, so he was blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun. While he's blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun off in the sky to the west. He was blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun off in the sky. Sun off in the sky, ahead of him, above him. So I want it directly ahead, off in the sky, ahead of him, off in the sky ahead. He was blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun, off in the sky ahead. Off in the sky, ahead. He covered his covering his eyes with an arm full of stuffing, with an arm. Let's see. Do we go stuffing with an arm? Let's see if it's coming out with an arm bursting full of stuffing. Covering his eyes with an arm bursting full of stuffing. Offered little shade. Offered little shade as he blinked awake. As he blinked awake. Or as his eyes adapted. As he adapted. As his vision adapted. Vision adapted. Squinting. A cool wind. Let's see. No, we won't do the cool wind. Squinting at the beauty. Squinting directly at the beauty of the sun, because we're setting up something unique, right? So he's going to be able to look at the sun, right? And this is actually going to be something really unique. Squinting directly at the magnanimous beauty of the sun brought about a sense of peace. the sun, a moment, let's see, confusion welled up, confusion welled up, confusion replaced his admiration as the sun whirled, to the east, as confusion replaced his admiration as the sun. Let's see, we're going to say, I'm thinking of the right word. As the sun whirled, I don't know, whirled. We'll just say the sun moved a mile, moved to the east in a matter of seconds, replaced instantly by a vibrant, by a dauntingly bright, dark blue moon. Perfect. So, and I think this is something interesting. So I think this was something I always wanted. I did know that I wanted something with the weather. So I knew that I was going to do a wake up thing. I knew that I wanted, this is very important. And then I wanted something that's unique about this environment. So he wakes up, the sun is blinding him. And I think, and I'll probably add a little bit more description to this. I might add a little bit more because I want to get the clouds as well. But right now, the core important thing is I want the sun and the moon. I want it to already be like, wait, what? How does the sun stay here? And then in I put it in seconds. It basically moves and the moon it's replaced by the moon. I'm like, how is that even possible? And I want that to be an intrigue, right? Replaced instantly by a daunting dark blue moon. The air, the world around him, however, continued to remain lit up, like the world around him, however, continued to remain lit up, lit up like the like it had always, like it had forever been day. The world around him, the world around him, however, continued to remain lit up. So we'll actually, the world around him, the sun, however, continued to light up the sky, creating a strange daylight that wrapped the lands, wrapped the lands around. And then I want to go off in the distance, and I want it to be that, off in the distance. And then he's going to be interrupted by dumb Scarecrow, a crow cawed. And then I knew that was going to be that. So even with this is almost bringing me to the end of this first page. And I knew that I was going to want to do this. So you see what I'm doing? I wanted to create an intrigue. I wanted to create something fun. And then this part, I'm probably going to add the crow itself. Let's see what you guys got here. Offered little comfort. That was a good idea. Covering his eyes with an arm burst full of stuffing, offered little comfort. Covering his eyes with an arm bursting full of stuffing, offered little shade, offered little comfort as his vision adapted. As his I don't like his twice. Covering his eyes with an arm bursting full of stuffing, offered little comfort. So, okay, actually, I think this. All right, so I think that's a good suggestion. Wake up in italics. He's thinking this. Who was blinded? We don't have his name until the next paragraph. A rising sun makes it sound like there are either many or this is on another planet. That's a good question. Wake up in italics. He's thinking this. Who was blinded? Yes, and the first one is very intentionally designed to be an italics with an interiority. And this one, this is actually going to be a very intentional choice. Usually, you don't need to call out things because since we're in the point of view of our protagonist, it's obvious. I mean, obviously, I'm still setting up, but generally, it's obvious that the point of view is whoever the character we're talking about. Wake up. This is actually something very important. This is actually, for those of you who know the story, this is actually, so the reason that he's waking up right now in this moment is because he is something that's happening later on in the story that he's causing himself to wake up for. But right now, the importance of this is he's just waking up. And I want it to be intriguing. It's created as a foreshadowing and an intrigue moment. And there's intentionality behind it. He was blinded by the vibrant rays of a rising sun. You're like, who was blinded? We don't have his name until the next pair. Yeah, you're right. So this one, and then this is done very intentionally. So you can actually get away with this sometimes, but this is intentionally that this is a single character, and I do not want him to know who he is until we get to dumb Scarecrow. Oh, look. Okay, so he is the Scarecrow. Yay, awesome, Mike. I'll check it out in just a second. I'm looking forward to checking out, my friend. Let's see, just be aware this is the first draft. I'm not polished. I still have all the names highlighted. Beautiful, beautiful. So I thought in your blurb, he is awoken by a crow stealing his arm. I would already be like, wait, but the sun is waking him. Yeah, and you know, Courtney, because I've been thinking about it, and I thought about this for a while. And I realized I don't want him to wake up because of the crow stealing his arm. I want him to wake up for this other reason. I want his waking up to feel natural and organic. The crow stealing his arm, that's what's going to get him to leave. So the crow stealing his arm is actually going to happen next. And that's actually probably the next section. So dumb Scarecrow, dumb Scarecrow, dumb Scarecrow, a crow cod. A crow cod from a wooden stake up above. He looked down. He peered down at his white, let's see, do I do white gloves? Well, he peered down at his gloved fingers. He peered down at his glove laced fingers. Oh, at least I don't know if I like that. His gloved palm. He peered down at his palms. He peered down at his hands. He peered down at his hands, palm up. Peered down his hands, palms up. A pair of tattered fingerless gloves. Showed his bony. Showed his, let's see, not bony. What do I want for his thing? Because I've been going back and forth on how I want him to look and feel. I'm like, okay, how do I want more stuffing? Do I want him to be sticks? And that I still haven't determined yet. That's something I really need to figure out. But I knew this was something I'd have to think through on this first one. He peered down at his hands, palms up, a pair of tattered fingerless gloves, which a pair of tattered fingerless gloves with twig like, we'll just put like twig like fingers sticking out. So we're gonna do that for now. I'm like twig like. I think for now I'm fine. I'm a scarecrow. I'm a scarecrow. He whispered. He whispered and smacked his lips. He whispered and smacked his lips. How long had it been since he had last spoken? How long had it been since he had uttered a word, any word? Hmm. He wondered if he had ever. Okay, and then that brings me to the end of the first page. Okay, so I'm going to end with there. So that's the first page there. So he peered down at his hands, palms up, a pair of tattered fingerless gloves with twig-like fingers sticking out. So I'm kind of thinking through. I'm thinking through if I actually like this or not. Because I like this, and I do want to do the element. I do want to do Scarecrow. And then I think I do like this. The first chapter is really going to be that the crow is actually going to steal his arm. And I think he's kind of he's exploring himself and waking up. And I think giving the reader the context of what this scarecrow is, because there's many different variations of scarecrows, but I think giving the reader the context of it is very important. Let's see. What if the crow brings the hat to the scarecrow and then he comes to life to save him before the fire burns his straw body? If you want to see more like crow picked scarecrow instead of accident. What if the crow brings the hat to the scarecrow and then he comes to life? Ooh, that's kind of like a Frosty the Snowman type vibe where, right, the hat is what brings him to life. That actually is interesting. Well, it's not the hat that brings him to life. We could actually lead him to we could actually do something with the hat. That's an intriguing idea, Neil. I actually kind of like that. We could lead that as a misdirection that the scarecrow thinks it's the hat that is actually what's brought him to life. That's actually a really fun idea. I really, really like that. I like that. I'd have to think about how to word that in a way to make the reader believe that it's actually the hat with this, because I do like it, the wake up. I like the setting. I think the setting is fun. I do want the weather to be predominant. Wake up, a hat. Let's see. I could do something like a hat. The only thing if I do something here is I technically, I mean, okay, so I could do this as a single sentence. A a straw. We'll just do straw for now. I'm not sure if I want to go with straw. A straw hat graced. A straw hat landed. Do I do a once upon a time? No, because I'm doing that fairy tale. So a straw hat landed upon his his let's see, what do I want for hair? His willowy straw hat landed upon his willow straw hair. A straw hat landed upon his willowy straw head, and he was awake. There we go. I think that was a great idea. I love that. The straw hat's not what's going to bring him to life, but I actually want him to believe it's the straw hat. I think that's great misdirection. Let's see. Engulf the lands would sound better in my opinion. Covering his head is blind by the vibrant rays. East sun moon. I like engulf the lands. It's cool too. Sunlight continued to remain. Creating a strange daylight that wrapped the land, that engulfed. Yeah, that's a much better word choice, Mike. I actually love that. That engulfed the lands. Ooh, I love that. There could be other scarecrows not awakened. He has to leave behind, making him the last. There could be other scarecrows not awakened. So actually, and I realize where the last scarecrow is going to come from, but it'll be tied into the story. But in this initial field, he's going to pass a lot of other scarecrows who are lifeless. So it's going to lead him to believe why he's the last scarecrow. Yeah, I think so as well. There's a reason that the crow has landed here, because the crow has actually been sent on a mission by Last Robot to go find somebody to help. But the tie-in I had to figure out was, why does the crow land at Scarecrow? Peered down at his canvas, fingerless gloves with inset his stuffing, poking out the worn holes. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's see. And that goes a little bit into the, I am a scare. He whispered and smacked his lips. How long had it been? He peered down at his hands, palms up. He peered down at his canvas, fingerless gloves. Ooh, I like that. He peered down at his canvas, fingerless gloves with twig like. He peered down at his canvas, fingerless gloves with twig like fingers, with bony, not bony, with he peered down his canvas, fingerless gloves with twig like fingers sticking out as he stretched them. As he stretched them. I like that. That was a good suggestion. Hey, what's up, RA? So we're just doing a first page. I was kind of going over the first page right now. I rewrote the first page for Last Scarecrow. Let's see, maybe he peered at his hands in wonderment. Wonderment is just all right. I'm working on my first. Boo, I feel ashamed. Yeah, actually, guys, totally. And once again, this is a great thing to keep in mind. It's not a competition. And this is why I always try to tell everybody, don't compare yourself to other writers, because you're only going to make yourself feel worse on average. The only person you should compare yourself to is yourself. Because a lot of times what happens is, when we're in the beginning of our writing journey or at early stages of it, we start going online to social media. We see other writers at different stages. We read published books, and then when they're in the same genre, we're like, oh, well, they're better because of this. Something that we do not take into consideration is we don't take context, because context matters. We compare ourselves to a snapshot of somebody else, but we don't take into context their entire journey that they took to get there. And because we don't take context into consideration, comparison is only setting ourselves up for failure, because we know our own life journey. We know where we're at in life. We basically take our own life journey and compare it to a snapshot of somebody else with zero context, which is why comparison is it's a losing game every time. If you want to compare yourself to somebody, compare yourself to yourself from a different version, from a different chapter in your life. So that way you're just trying to always improve on your own writing. That's my recommendation. When did he last hear his own voice? That is a great question, RA. It has I have the timeline of the world. I haven't determined how long it's been since he really landed there, but it's probably been a good, it's either a couple hundred years, it might be 1,000. I have the timeline of each era. What I haven't figured out is the number of years. That's something I still need to determine. That's actually going to be, that's super important too. Somewhere between probably a couple hundred years and 1,000 would be my guess. Yay, awesome. It looks like we're getting a lot of great first pages here. I know Kaufman isn't ready to be writing a second draft, now showing how we cannot not put our thoughts in when we get them. Woo, I know. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I really appreciate it. When we start doing the second drafts, we'll be starting that next week. When I start on it, I'll be framing the writing portion itself as more of a writing sprint thing, and we'll go back to writing sprints and writers chat. And I think that might work better, so that way we can actually be consistent with our writing and editing. Kaufman has a lot to edit in the next couple months. That would be cool. That's a great idea, Mast. Parts of Scarecrows. Yeah, that would give it the creepy vibe. I love that. Ooh. I'm like, I want to start working on the book right now. Like, I'm getting close with the map though. I think I need like one more day with the map. and I'll finish the last portion of it. I'm not going to worry too much about the craziness. I just want to get the overall look of it. Ooh, he actually does deal with the graveyard and scarecrows near the end of the story. Okay. All right. So let's get in. I want to, first off, thank you. Thank you for giving your valuable suggestion, valuable advice, and feedback for what you think, for what would helping me with the first page of Last Scarecrow. Those of you, you know that I'll be editing the book probably for the next 3 months, probably be the next 2 to 3 months. Obviously, you know that we got a lot going on in the Right Now community, but I'm going to be staying consistent with my Monday through Friday, really trying to get into the writing flow. So much more of Last Scarecrow to come, I promise. But that first page sounds 100 times better than the original. And it's because we created an expectation, we created a shock element, we created all 4 parts of the first page promise that are already intriguing from the first page. Now we can always do with some editing, but I think that's what really works. And what we're going to do is we're going to hop now into reviewing and critiquing your first pages, which I am looking forward to. So I've been looking forward to. So make sure if you haven't already, submit right now to have your first page read and edited right now here on the stream. The submission is down in the YouTube description and it is also in the YouTube chat. Okay, so I'm going to pull them up, but before we do, most importantly, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. Every day we got many events here in the Right Now community, but if you're enjoying and if you're getting value out of this, or if you're having fun with the community, help us get to that 500 subscriber mark. Almost there, less than 30 subscribers. And then we'll launch the Right Now Discord channel, and that'll allow you to be able to share work with each other. If you want to get feedback, we can start doing some more community collaborations. Discord will make that easier. What's kind of funny is that YouTube just made a big announcement that they're actually launching a type of Discord on the YouTube app itself. It's going to be under the community tab. It's only on select channels, but they promised to have it out on all apps, on all channels by the end of the year. It just very happenstance that YouTube happens to be launching this, because I know YouTube's focus is on building community around things that people like. Probably because TikTok does so well with the interest algorithm. Awesome. So that 6 hour in December will be very helpful. Yeah, the write-a-thon in December is going to be huge. That's going to be like an all-day writing convention. I'm telling you guys, that will be the biggest writing event of the year. All right, beautiful. So definitely tap those buttons, come join the community, and I appreciate you. Okay, so let's hop into the first page story edits. All right, so I'm just going to be pulling them up. We will go page by page. Scarecrow was fun. Ooh, awesome. So we got some good responses. Okay, so let me pull up. We're just going to go in order of submission. Let's see. All right, so we're going to go in order of submission and we're going to knock them out. So we're going to read and see what we do. Even if you've sent a document, we're going to focus on just the first page. Let's see, let's turn off Grammarly and we can get into it. Okay, perfect. So we have our first submission from our very own Chat Soul. So I got yours up here first. Thank you for submitting, my friend. And let me pull up the info. All right, so Souls is, let's see, the title is, it is called, all right, so we have from our very own Solwolf. Ooh, I love that. That's a great pen name, by the way. Solwolf, I love that. And the title, Silent Flames. And genre, this is a One Piece fan fiction adventure. Awesome. So Silas is a Lunarian raised by the Roger Pirates until a confrontation separates them and he learns to navigate the world alone. Mute, since being rescued, he must learn to navigate the world without a voice, escape people who mean to harm him, and reconnect with those he was raised with. All right, perfect. So let's pull it up and see what we got. Chapter 1. No, let. We are not taking in another kid. The boy tightened his grip, burying his face in the red coat under him, the moon holding him side, the man holding him side. There was a gentle rocking moon under them, making the boy sleepy. He tried to focus on that, not the angry and confused voices muttering ahead of him. I couldn't just leave him there, the man said quietly, the barest hint of anger creeping into his tone. A growl. But we already have 2 other kids. If you had to rescue him or something, fine, but we'll leave him somewhere safe on the next island. The boy flinched, letting out a whimper. Nowhere was safe. Silence. A loud shout from behind made the boy flinch, shoving his face harder into the man's shoulder. The man immediately stepped forward. We should be leaving now. More shouts, then gunshots, somewhere behind them and getting closer. What? Roger, why are there Marines chasing you? The other men shouted, sounding utterly exasperated. Footsteps scrambled across the wood. Flooring. A breeze tugged at the boy's hair, smelling strongly of salt and water. It mingled with the strong, woodsy smell of the coat. He felt a deep chuckle reverberate through Roger's chest. I can explain. He paused and called out, Gabon, get us out of here. The door opened and the air grew cool. The rocking moon increased after a moment. 2 sets of footsteps followed Roger, and the boy tried not to wince. The man from outside snapped, Jackson, watch the brats. His anger barely restrained. Annoyance bled through his tone. Aye, sir, came a response. A set of footsteps quickened and passed, while Roger stopped and another door opened. The boy whimpered as Roger sat down and moved him. He tried to cling to the coat, but Roger carefully pried him off. I'm right here. Just try to sleep, Roger said gently, a smile stretching across his face. He was easily the largest man the boy had ever seen. Wild black hair, a large mustache, an enormous red and gold cloak, a straw hat with a red band on his head. There was a friendly gleam in his eye. He stared at Roger, eyes wide, but curled up near the top of the enormous bed after a second. He didn't react when Roger covered him with a thick blanket, but cast a brief glance at the other man. Tall, blonde, round glasses, a scar across his eye. He was in mid-age, but no more than the man who rescued him. The blonde man met the boy's gaze. He immediately broke off the stern look by covering his face with the blanket. The unsettling harshness from the man scared him. Aside, then the blonde spoke. Roger, explain. They were beating him, Ray, came the heated response. From what I heard, that wasn't the first one, and it sounded as if it were a regular thing. A sharp hiss. They were beating a kid? Not just one, but others? Open? He's younger than Shanks and Buggy. He's 4, Roger told him. He went silent for a heartbeat, then said, I didn't just rush in this one. Awesome. So first off, Soul, thank you for sharing that. That was absolutely awesome. Now I know while obviously some of the formatting was a little funky, it looks like we had something with some type of formatting thing. I'm not sure if that's part of it, might be images. My guess is it's probably images from the original text, but overall, thank you for submitting. That was actually really, really cool to read. I'm a One Piece fan, so I definitely picked up on all the references. All right. So as I'm looking at this as a first page, we're actually getting a lot. Now I probably should have made the distinction on it now. Okay, I know you're doing this online, so this is probably going to be a little bit more. You have a little bit more room, but realistically, on an average book, on an average piece, on an average like ebook, and now I know this is fan fiction, so this is a little different. You're realistically, it's probably going to be spaced out to some degree. Now, I wouldn't say that it's probably going to be double space. Like that's the most, but I'd say like even if we pushed it a little bit, we'll just copy all. And I would say that realistically, it's probably going to be like we could do that 1.15. Real, it's probably going to be like 1.5 is the most realistic. But I would say like I would make it 1.5 for the first page because I want to make sure that regardless of the formatting, that I'm hooking them in the and even if it's larger formatting, because I want to pull them in immediately. What I like is that obviously our plot is clear, right? So we have it that they captured a kid. We have it that they are definitely one of the pirates got one of the kids because like something bad was happening to him. Right. So, and then this is a good question, right? So then we're thinking of is it me or is anyone confused who the POV character is? If anyone's interested in checking my fanfics, look up Solwolf on AO. What's AO again, Sol? Why don't you drop the website link? Or you can drop it in Facebook if you want, and I'll drop it for you. Actually, you might, as a mod, it might allow you to drop links. Oh, that's right. I know why. I turned off I turned off people sharing links so that way we don't get spam. That's why I turned links off. This will be under my Solwolf AO3. Let's see. No, we are not taking in another kid. The boy tightened his grip, burying his face in the red coat under him. The man holding him side. There was a gentle rocking moon under them, making the boy sleepy. So obviously the boy's asleep. So we know it's not the boy. I think okay. And so this is what I can see. So the challenge is that we have a couple of different characters. It's from the boy's POV, but he doesn't have a name yet. Well, so the only challenge with that is if it is from the boy's POV, isn't the boy asleep? Making the man holding him side. There was a gentle rocking moon under them, making the boy sleepy. No, okay, the boy's not asleep. He's just young. That makes sense. He tried to focus on that, not the angry and confused voices muttering ahead of him. I couldn't just leave him here, the man said quietly, the barest hint of anger creeping into his tone. Okay, so I think this is where the opportunity is, Soul. I think, and I actually see this happen a lot with writers. So right now, it's because we have so many characters. Now, once you describe them, I'm like, okay, I think we get Shanks in here. We get Roger. You describe them here because we're getting this immediately. I would give some type of description of what the boy sees them. So no, we are not taking in another kid. I would actually almost think that I don't even think this is important. I mean, like I would start with this because this is the emotional stake right here. We are not taking in another kid. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Wait, what? What? I think this is more interesting. The boy tightened his grip, burying his face in the red coat under him. The man holding him side. Okay. So this is clearly the man is the red coat. There was a gentle rocking. Yep. He tried to focus on that, not the angry and confused voices muttering ahead of them. I couldn't just leave him there, the man said quietly. So because you're setting up different characters, what you want to do is you want to actually move away from calling them just the man. Because since you do have multiple characters, it leads to the potential confusion since it's early and you still have to set them up. So I would instead say that I would either say I couldn't just leave him there, Redcoat said. I would do something like that. Give him a nickname. Or you could say Redcoat Man. I mean, what? He's 4, right? The boy's really 4? I'm pretty sure you said the boy was 4 years old. I'm almost positive. A sharp piss. He's younger than Shanks and Buggy. So obviously he's young, which means the naming structure should be from our protagonist's point of view, which means I would say Redcoat Man. I think Redcoat Man sounds fine. I couldn't just leave him there, Redcoat Man said quietly, the barest hint of anger creeping in his tone, a growl. But we already have 2 other kids. If you had to rescue him or something, fine, but we'll leave him somewhere safe on the next island. If you had to rescue him or something, fine. I would actually get rid of this, and I would say growl, but we already have 2 other kids. Because the other part, like, it's interesting, but I would like, let's get to the point of it. but we already have 2 other kids. We'll leave him we'll leave him somewhere on the next island. And, like, obviously, like, okay, maybe he does care, but let's create a little tension. Let's create the growl guy might be like, ooh, maybe he's a little bit more dangerous. Yeah, the boy has his face buried in Roger's cloak. He doesn't see him. Yeah, and that's fine. I would still call them by search and description from what the boy thinks of them initially, and that's actually more for the readers. That's more for the readers' benefit. Let's see. Let's see. A growl. We'll leave him somewhere safe on the next island. And I think because we have different characters, so you don't chance getting lost, I would actually set up who this growl is coming from. A growl from somebody. The boy flinched, letting out a whimper. Nowhere was safe. Silence. And this is like, I actually love this. I think we just need to set up who the growl is coming from. So this is a growl from, let's see, you said from Ray. So whatever Ray's description is. Yeah, so I would say I would add description here. I would do like the same that we're doing with Red Coat Man, and then I would do something similar, something kind of fun. So like a bearded, um, a growl, a growl rose from a from Harry Trenchcoat Man. I don't know. Harry Trenchcoat Man. You just do something, right? Because then this is immediate. Like a growl rose from a Harry Trenchcoat Man. There we go. Because we're from a boy's perspective. So then we want to make sure that the naming structure is kind of fun because the boy's really young. He's probably scared AF, but he's still young. If it's coming from a 4-year-old, then he just, yeah. Yep. A growl rose from the Harry Trenchcoat Man. And I think this is good because this is here. I think while we hear what the people are saying, if the perspective is from the boy and the boy's 4 years old, the boy is probably not going to understand, and the boy just won't understand this. Loud shout from behind made the boy flinch, shoving his face harder into the man's shoulder. The man immediately stepped forward. We should be leaving now. A loud shout from behind made the boy flinch, shoving his face harder into, I would put the red coat, harder into the red coat fabric, because we want to keep contextualizing that he's with red coat because we have so many characters. The man immediately stepped forward. A loud shout behind made the boy flinch, shoving his face harder into the red coat man's fabric. Into the red coat man's jacket. Coat. This other man immediately stepped forward. All right. And then I think I would do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you off with this because I just want to give you the idea of the type of setup. Because I got so many submissions, I want to make sure I have enough time for everybody. But what I'm going to do is I want to leave this as like, this is the point, right? So we're focused on the point of view character, on the main boy. I think it makes it stronger by focusing on him and differentiating each character. I think the challenge right now is because we have a couple of different characters, and right now we're getting a lot of information, which can be important. And once you make the references to like Shanks and Buggy and Roger, like that's all One Piece references. People love that. Once you make the references, people love that. I would actually almost include a well-known name in this very early intro. And then since the boy is 4 years old, it creates this weird imbalance because the boy is not going to understand anything. I would either make the boy a little older so that way he can have comprehension for the reader's benefit, or then, like I think somebody, Mass Toaster, you would then center it right around more how the boy is feeling, because these guys are saying words, but it goes right over the boy's head. If the boys are protagonist. Otherwise, what happens is then it feels like it's more focused around the plot and around telling us what's happening of the moment. And it feels like the protagonist is the narrator and less the boy in that instance because there's so much information. Let's see. And then I'd be like, another man description. I'd do another man description. Immediately step forward. We should be leaving now. More shouts than gunshots somewhere behind them and getting closer. And I would do that. This is awesome. More shouts than gunshots and somewhere behind them and getting closer. And then I would say, I would go to the boy. The boy felt this. The boy thought this. The boy ran away, but the boy tried to run away. The boy tried to run away, but Redcoat grabbed him. Because then this makes it clearer that our perspective is based from our peer boy. And I think that would just make it stronger. Yeah, and it's hard. Writing from a really young children's perspective is hard, and it just takes practice because we're used to how we perceive things, but we also have to think like, and especially when we need to get a lot of plot out, we also have to be thinking about like, okay, well, what does the boy actually comprehend? But like in a logistical sense, the boy hears everything. He hears the words, he hears the actions, he still has the same feelings, but he just doesn't comprehend it. So all the boy's emotions are going to be more tied to the physical moments of the thing. And I think that would make this a lot stronger. Absolutely. But yeah, once again, I love the one piece of it. I really love the setup. I really, really do. And I personally actually really like the references. Once I got Buggy and Shanks, I'm like, yes, there's my One Piece fandom. I love it. Yeah, this is absolutely interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm going to hop to the next one. But for those of you who liked it, I know Soul dropped where you can find them down in the chat, which is super awesome. Thanks again for sharing, my friend. Okay, so we're going to hop right into number 2, which is Marta. Okay, so Marta, it looks like, let me see if I got yours. Awesome. All right, Marta. So I got yours here. Awesome. So our own Marta. So Marta gave us the first page, and then let me get the setup for it. Awesome. And I'm probably going to focus. I'm going to probably do like I'll probably edit like the first paragraph of these and do a little bit more of a critique. So that way I make sure I have time for everybody. Okay. So Marta. So this is called Destiny. This is the book that Marta's been working on, that she's been talking about, and hopefully is going to be published soon. Super excited to read it. It is called Destiny. It's a psychological thriller. And Destiny. Are we truly in control of our lives, or is there a greater force shaping our paths? In Destiny, the thrilling debut novel by Marta Chowanska, two protagonists from different worlds are haunted by mysterious visions and cryptic signs that pull them toward an unknown fate. As they delve deeper into their respective mysteries, they are forced to question everything they know about free will, choice, and destiny. If you've ever wondered whether our lives are guided by chance or by something more, Destiny will keep you captivated and questioning until the very last page. Will you uncover the truth? Chapter 1. Ellsworth Street, London. And let me turn off Grammarly. We don't need that. Awesome. All right. A chilling September morning. You can feel the slowly approaching face of autumn in the air. Street noise, crowds typical of London. Time 6:30. While others are just waking up to life, there's no sleepy unit in sight here. Street filled with stalls, as everyday local shopkeepers begin to set out their products. hoping to make as much profit as possible. From the cheapest stands offering scarves, gloves, hats, and slippers for no more than a few pounds to world class clothes. This is what Bethnal Green has to offer. There are even wedding and special occasion dresses in the shop windows, costing the equivalent of several £1,000s. Despite the prohibition on taking photos in store windows, women passing by take photos of the dresses for sale, full of sequins and other decorations. Only a few can afford a given expense. Hence, some ladies go a step further and decide to enter such a store, try on a dress, and leave. Me, a foreigner like many others, have to find my way in the current reality of London and the district where I live. In the morning, I walk down a busy street, inadvertently nudging this or that with my shoulder. Hey, do you have any problem? One shouts to me. Not wanting any trouble, I just wave him off as a sign of peace. All I can think about is the supermarket a few blocks away, in leaky shoes, without thinking about putting on my soaked clothes from the previous day. I walk constipated, thinking only about the ingredients for breakfast. I dream of pancakes with maple syrup. Mmm, I love this. I love this line right here. I dream of pancakes with maple syrup. I finally reach the supermarket. A strange, unfamiliar shiver runs through me. Even though I visit this store almost every day, I seem to forget why I actually came here. Overcome with complete anxiety, I leave the store as quickly as possible, carrying only rolls in my bag. Dissatisfied, although having saved some money, I return to our studio apartment. A small, dingy, cigarette smoke filled one room apartment. A brothel as befits men. Sink full of dirty dishes. Interesting. One more time. Thank you for sharing that, Marta. That was awesome. All right, beautiful. So let's hop right into it. So with this first page, essentially we're doing a lot of world building to pull the reader in. And let's see, so you said this is psychological thriller. So for this type, essentially what we're doing is we're setting up, we have the setting here, which is awesome. Even wedding and special occasions, despite the prohibition. So you're really focused on making sure that the reader knows exactly what the world feels like before they start the story. So we get world building, and then the foreigner. You know what's interesting is if I were to play around with this, I would actually move the foreigner up a little bit because I want my protagonist. When I think about the paragraph structure, I was pulled in after the maple syrup line because this is interesting. It's unique to your character, right? So me, a foreigner like many others, have to find my way in the current reality of London and the district where I live. Killing September. I actually, and this is just a suggestion, Marta. I would actually make this the first paragraph because this pulls me in immediately. And then while he's thinking about maple syrup, then give the context of the world. Because I would actually rather pull my readers in with my protagonist and then, okay, chilling September morning, or me, a foreigner like many others, have to find my way in the current reality of London and the district where I live. So, like, most people probably know what London is like. Even if you've never lived there, like we've seen London in pop culture in the mainstream, you probably have an idea of what London is like. So we're in the real world of London. Now, we obviously don't have a time period yet. Oh, we did, right. 1994. So we're in London 1994. You don't actually have to do a lot of world building setup because most people probably have an idea of what London is like. Now, the setup you have to do is for that time period. We don't know what the time period of 1994 London was like. And that's essentially what these two paragraphs are doing here. So I think if I was going about this, I would set up with here because since you already said this is 1994, this is actually already enough context for the reader to have a like, okay, I'm in London 1994, great. And then I would pull them in with my protagonist. And I love this because this gives me more context about they're walking through the streets of London. We already get this like, hey, do you have any problem? This is fun, right? But clearly this guy doesn't want any trouble. He just wants to go shop he's dreaming of pancakes. And he's also constipated. I was like, okay, ooh, it's not good. But okay, he's working through the constipation for pancakes. All right, the pancakes are worth it. I love it. All right, so I'd make this the first paragraph, then go. Let's see. I found it. Yep. So I do this one, and then I would do these two. Chilling September morning, or even wedding. I would condense these into one paragraph, personally, because I want to do a little world building, give them an indication of what they're looking for. Chilling September morning, typical London, time 6:30. And because this is a psychological thriller, I would actually do some type of foreshadowing. I would want to get a foreshadowing on the first page. So this would be good. I would set open with this paragraph. Then I would mix these two. And then on the third one, I would do some type of foreshadowing. I want to do something that could be potentially like thriller-ish in the vibe of the genre. I finally reached the supermarket. A strange and familiar shiver runs through me. Yep, he's going through the store. Okay, and I would do it after the supermarket. Dissatisfied, although having saved some money, I returned to our studio apartment expecting a ghost or expecting something. I would just do something that is foreshadowing. Dissatisfied, although having saved some money, I returned to our studio apartment. The thought of returning made me cringe, or the thought of returning brought fear. Do something, a foreshadowing thing, I think would work well. And I think if you do a foreshadow at the end of the first page, I think that would be beautiful. So, character setup, world building, and then the foreshadowing. I think that's how I would frame this. I think that would be the way to go about it. And it looks like you had some really good suggestions here in the comments. And okay, this is another great call out, right? Guys, so let's keep in mind, Marta wrote this in another language. Marta wrote this story in a completely different language. I struggle, most of us struggle with writing books in our main language, right? So translating it over, sometimes you don't always get the full context of things based on the way that it's translated. Right now, obviously, Marta, you're awesome with English, so you probably did pretty well. But I think we have to say that, like, huge accomplishment, huge applaud to anybody who can write in more than one language. I think that's incredible. Yeah, I was kind of mixed on this line as well. I don't know if I like the constipated line because it kind of sets up like, okay, so yeah, I don't know if I like constipated either. You should. You should include something. You should include super foreshadowing, Marta. You should definitely do foreshadowing. You should do some type of foreshadowing. I think because you want to pull your reader in immediately. Okay. And so this is another vibe, right? So Eli actually likes the constipated that line portion because it makes the reader, it makes the character feel more human, right? So this is a perfect example, right? Marta, one reader might like it, one reader won't. This is when you ask yourself, what is the goal and what is the intention of your character whenever you get feedback. So that's actually a really great call out. I really don't like London and I'm British. Oh, it's funny. Awesome. So yeah, so Marta, I think that's the overall feedback I would give you. I think the one piece of feedback I completely agree with is, let's see who said it. I didn't. Yeah, so I think we could get a little bit more of how does the character feel. Now, I think with the setup, it's not too important on the first page. We because this is mostly world building, this character setup. We're getting a lot of physicality, which is fine. I think I think your last paragraph should be how does the character feel? I think if you get into how does the character feel about specifically about his apartment or about some type of moment, I think that would make this really stand out even more so. Awesome. Marta, thank you for so much for submitting. Fun, fun, fun. I love it. Thank you, my friend. All right, beautiful. So we're going to hop right on to the next one. That was beautiful. And by the way, super excited to be able to look into the whole book, Marta. Please definitely let us know once you're finished, once you're ready to publish it. I know you're still working on the translating portion of it, I believe. Let's see. And then our next one, it looks like we got, let me pull up the link. It looks like I got a Google Doc. All right. And it looks like, oh, engineer. So we got I have yours all set, my friend. We got Mr. Engineer. All right, engineer. So I got your story all queued up. I'm like super stoked that you were able to pull it into the community. So let me pull this up here. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so we got it here. Let me pull up the screen. Perfect. So we have engineer. It's called Dragons of Steel. You know, I've already loved hearing about your story idea. It's fantasy. A half dragon rescues a now orphan from her burning home and takes on the journey to take her to a distant relative in the southern fortresses. The city they're staying, Sandstone, waiting for a train that crosses the desert, is attacked by a dragon and his army. Devastation is a dragon that made himself deaf, as dragons can be dissuaded or controlled by ringing a specific frequency in a bell. And because of ancient battles, almost every city old enough has the bell needed to counter a dragon attack. So he stuck his claws into his ears and robbed himself of his hearing. Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, I love that blurb. I love that. Oh, that's a great blurb, by the way. I'm so intrigued. Okay. Ooh, I like this. So this is probably like a quote that's either in italics at the top, which I see with more contemporary novels, or it's probably on like a previous page. Okay. But my scales are battered and worn, but my fire no longer burns as bright, and I can only ask you to forgive me. The roar of a dying dragon, author unknown. Chapter 1, Better Than Dragons. People had a very unique naming tradition, choosing to name their children after characteristics they had, something that they would be known for in the family, and usually they were pretty positive. Steel didn't look like Steel. His name opposed everything he looked like. His half-dragon scales that covered his humanoid body were a shimmering golden color that reflected off the sunlight. His indigo blue claws were long and sharp, and he had fiery red eyes with a predator's gaze. But his father didn't want to name him Gold, because in his eyes, gold was an insult. Gold was valuable, estimated, but it bent easily. He didn't see that in his son. He saw a youthful, unbreakable will in the child's eyes, and so he named him Steel, a metal that shined under the desert sun and could outlast whoever forged it. That was his son. And every day his father would tell him the same thing, that he was great, that he was destined for great things. And every day when he woke up, he'd remember his name, Steel. And as that name came to his head, the day started. The sun pierced through the clouds and into the Dragon Knight's eyes. He shut them tighter before opening them. He slept with plenty of blankets, as always, pushing them aside as he got up and picked up a sleeveless shirt that was hanging off the bed frame. He put it on as he walked, wrapping his tail around his waist like a belt to avoid it knocking something over. He looked to the other bed, and underneath a thin sheet was sleeping a child. Feather had long white hair and pale skin, almost always wearing a comfortable white shirt and a green skirt to match her eyes. Steele pondered if he should wake her up. It was very early, but he didn't want to leave her alone while he had breakfast. The Dragonite nudged her. Feather grunted and stretched herself, opening her eyes slowly. Morning, he said. Morning, Steel, she said back, scratching her eyes before looking up at him. The half dragon's head almost bumped on the ceiling sometimes. I'm going to breakfast. I appreciate your company, he said. Awesome. Oh my goodness. I actually love this opening. I love this opening. Yeah, this is very heavy character based opening. Awesome. So first off, engineer, thank you for submitting that. That was actually really cool. So I think what I actually really like about this is I like we get a very unique setup. I like the unique setup. We get Steel and then what her name's Feather. The character development is interesting. I am so intrigued by that. I think Steel and Feather, those are some great characters. And I think essentially you're setting up the naming tradition for our character. And we know immediately why he looks the way he does. So I didn't want it to name him Gold because in his eyes, Gold was an insult. So we already get character set up. We get character development for Steel, and we're already set up with some stakes for the character that he had a thing with his parent. He might have had a thing with whoever his parent was. We don't know if I don't know if this is the last dragon, but we know sound basically kills dragons in this world. And then we do something fun with metaphors. I think that's awesome. And I think it was actually a very good choice to start off with this. Because I think this is actually very unique to your story. I would actually cut this. I would cut this first portion out. I was like, oh wait, I can't edit it. So I would cut this first paragraph out because I think this is just a better opening. I think this is just stronger. Steel didn't look like Steel. His name opposed everything he looked like. This makes it clear that his name is Steel. Steel didn't look like Steel. His name opposed everything he looked like. And then we get his dragon scales, we get description. His half dragon scales that covered his humanoid body. We're shimmering gold. So he has a humanoid looking body, but he's basically dragon human, which is fun. We get the claws. He's basically humanoid body, but he has claws. And he had fire red eyes. So he's like a half human, half dragon, which is basically what you said, which is fun. And then we get the thing with goal with father. Okay. And I love that we get the setup here. And every day he'd woke up, he'd remember his name. So I think from a perspective, I would shorten this paragraph just a little bit. This is interesting, but we already got the point was still here. The thing with gold is actually interesting. I would make this like a sentence, because it looks like he didn't see that. Gold was valuable, estimated, but it bent easily. And every day when he woke up, he'd remember his name Steel. Now we're getting the thing with the father, which is interesting. I don't know if it's important on the very first page. So I would actually move this a little later into the chapter because I think the name thing is so unique. Because then we want to get from here, we want to get into the present moment. So I would do this gold thing, and then I would go to Steel, and then as that name came to his head, the day started. I would start here. He looked onto the other bed. All right, so basically he's got up here. So, and as that name came to his head, the day started. As his name Steel, the day started, the sun pierced. He shut them tired before. He slept with plenty of blankets. So he shows hanging off the bed frame. He put it on as he walked. Yeah, so we're basically setting up here. He looked onto the other bed. I would move this underneath and I would have him looking at the sleeping child because I think the feather thing is once again another intrigue. I think that the feather is an intriguing point. This girl named Feather. First off, how many characters have been named Feather? That's a badass name. I love Feather. Your naming structure, by the way, is really cool, friend. Yeah, I actually love what you're doing with your naming structure. And what you've done with gold and steel is already a really interesting thing. So I think you probably have a knack for using irony with words, which is actually really cool. Yeah, so I would actually start this with him looking at the other bed and then getting out of bed, right? Maybe even he talks to her as he's getting up. The Dragon Knight, so I'd go here, talk to her, have him get up, have him nudge her, and then she finally rolls over, morning still. I think that's how I would reframe this, just so that way I can chance pulling in the reader as fast as possible. But yeah, overall, I'd say this is a really strong setup, engineer. Really, really strong setup. Thanks. I struggled with a lot with how to open the novel. I actually think you did a really good job opening it, my friend. You did a really good job. I'm actually really impressed by it. I think if you wanted to add on additional layer, you could of course do a little bit more showing. So you could add maybe another sense of he wakes up. What does like use one of the other senses? This is what I always tell to writers. If you're trying to figure out how to do more showing versus tell, pick one sense, pair it with what you're seeing. So I would have him wake up and be like, what does it sound like? What does does he hear any sounds? Oh, he hears the soft, hears the soft, he hears the soft breathing of feathers. Hears the soft breathing of a feather. Her snoring is always so and so. Or something like a smell, right? He smelled burnt gold. And that's why the thought came to him as he rolled out of bed from a nightmare. Yay, Jared. I figured I'd write a flash fiction about you and just submit it for you to have fun with. Yay. Yay, I love it. That's awesome. Thanks, WTC. I probably would have fun with it. Just make sure that we're talking about the evil Carriage Hoffman or Old Man Cough, one of the two. Those are my two favorite characters so far you guys have come up with. Yeah, and I think that's why so that way we don't chance with the info dumping. I think that's why we push the father bard a little later. So we let people get into the irony and the characters. But I think that would be fun. Ooh, I'm excited. Awesome. All right, perfect. So thank you so much for submitting that, engineer. That was a fun little piece. And once again, really, really great work. I think that's a really good setup to a story. All right, beautiful. Okay. So we have quite a lot of responses. Let's see. So what do we got here? WTC. I just looked at the one you submitted. It cracks me up so much. Oh my goodness. That literally this your thing cracks me up so much. Oh my god. WTC, what I'm gonna do because I have a lot of submissions, I'll save it and I'll read it on one of our daily ones because this is absolutely hilarious. I'm like so down for that. I want to focus on somebody's work. Oh my god. WTC submitted a story about me, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. I'll read it on one of our daily writing streams next week. I am absolutely loving this. I'll do it on Monday. I'll read it on Monday. Because I want to make sure I can do someone else's who really needs the help right now. Oh, I'm like so honored. I'm so honored, WTC. Thank you so much, my friend. Okay, so let's see. I will probably have enough time to do another one. Let me see, and I want to see which ones I have. All right. And it looks like in submission order. So it looks like the next one I got is Mary's. So Mary, I'm going to pull yours up. Let's pull this up here. So I got Mary's and let me drop this. Awesome. So Mary, you need to give me access. It does not let me pull yours up, Mary. If you're here in the chat right now, you need to give me access to access the document. Mm. Okay, so with that one, I can't hop into Mary's right now, so I'm going to pull up the next one because I want to keep this moving. Let's see. It looks like we got. Oh, we got. Oh, okay. Looks like I got Tiara next. All right, Tiara. So I got yours pulled up next. It looks like we got Darling Days. Let me pull up the Google Docs link. I should probably include that as a submission note for people to remember to allow me a permission to look at it. Oh, awesome. Oh, Tiara, yours is super short. It's because we got a script. Awesome. Yours is super short. Yeah, it's in Google. So you have to give me permission to even view it. It didn't even let me open it. I think Mary in the top right. Let's see. So let me go into an absolutely. Yeah, so Mary, I'll show you. So I pulled up Tiara's because Tiara's is actually super short, so I can do hers. But when you're in Google Docs, you see in this top right, you have to go to the share option. And then if it's your document, it generally will give you different options to share. Or when you click on it, it will show you who you can share it with. And then you have to share it. Usually when you send somebody a Google Docs link, sometimes Google Docs will ask you if you want to share permission with them. But yeah, right now, the first one that I got for you, it just didn't. I just couldn't get it. So I'll do yours in just a second. I would say just give me permission so I can look into it. Tiara, I'm gonna look at yours right now so I can do it. And then Tiara's is a Darling Days, a horror drama. On the outskirts of a small Colorado town, a serial killer is on the loose, and violence is just as regular an occurrence in the Darling household. When Joyce Darling is gifted a tape recorder by her husband, Ed, she begins to document his increasingly strange and unbearable behavior. Tape 1, the gift. Scene 1. There's a car driving down a road. Grainy dash cam footage. A radio broadcast is heard. Whoever is driving flips through the stations. Broadcaster. Another missing woman from the Bethany Hill area. Robin Bennett, a Bethany Hill native, was reported missing yesterday. He flips to another station. Bennett's family believes her disappearance is connected to the string of missing young women in the area. He turns to music playing. He hums along quietly. Scene 2, the tape skips. Joyce Darling sits in the dance studio she works at when her sister Brenda Stiles walks in. There's a gentle echo as they talk. Awesome. So Tiara, I'm actually really happy that you did a script. Because I'm glad we got a script balance as well. Wonderful. Thank you for submitting it. Beautiful, my friend. So I'm glad that you did that. So with scripts, what's different is with a book, we have to capture them on the first page. With scripts, and when you think about with movies, so okay, two things to keep in mind. First off, we have to keep in mind the first page of whoever we're going to sell the script to, right? Which is called optioning a script. Usually you're going to option a script to get a producer to then make the movie for you. So you usually option it to like a production company, unless you're going to make it yourself, in which then you would look for investors. But assuming you're going to option it first to somebody else, the first page has to stand out because as a reading experience, it has to make sense as a script. And then from a viewing experience, what is the first thing the audience sees? The audience has to like the first 5 minutes. Think of the movies you've seen. If the movie is really bad in the first 10, 15 minutes, you'll go watch something else because once again, million options out there. So capturing the first moment is so important, especially from a visual perspective. So I think what I like about this is there's a car driving down a road, and I think we get this interesting dash cam footage, which is fun. A radio broadcast is heard, and then broadcaster, another missing woman from the Bethany Hill area. Robin Bennett, a Bethany Hill native, was reported missing yesterday. Flips to another station. Bennett's family believes her disappearance is connected to the string of missing young women in the area. Let's see. I would say I like that. He turns the music playing. He hums along quietly. So I think what we're doing is we're basically using the hook as the missing disappearance. Dash cam. Okay, radio broadcast is heard. So essentially, I think a broadcaster, there's a car driving down a road, grainy dash cam footage. A radio broadcast is heard. A missing woman from the Bethany Hill. I think the only thing I'm not sure about is what are we seeing? So I actually like that it's dash cam, and I think that makes it unique. But are we seeing the road ahead, or are we seeing the driver? Now, I guess it says he flips to another station, so obviously it's clear somebody has to be driving. Okay, and they intentionally do not want us to know who is driving. So this makes us think that this might be the killer. This could be the antagonist. So this actually could be the antagonist. He turns the music playing. And especially because this is about the missing person, this is suggestive that this is the killer who killed or captured the antagonist who captured the Bennett. I like this. I actually think this is I think this is actually a fun opening. Yeah, and this is actually you see this very normally happen a lot with serial killer type movies. You see this happen with horror movies where technically the opening moment like well, from a storytelling perspective, we really should start with our protagonist. Movies, TV shows tend to do this a lot. They start with a hook, and I would actually argue that this hook is actually a prologue. I would generally argue that this is done a lot with visual stuff because it's a visual thing, but I would argue this is a prologue because this is actually more world building, setting up probably our antagonist. We're getting world building. Robin is missing, and this is the killer, or this is probably it's we're assuming here, and we're getting it through a creepy dash cam footage because it could just be dash cam. No, it's grainy dash cam, which means that it's supposed to have a stylistic vibe to it. That then stylistic vibe, stylistic lens, missing person, maybe somebody who could be involved. So I think you did a good job. I think you did a good job of adhering to some genre specifics here, Tiara. I actually really like it. I think from what I've seen from a first page, I don't think I would. I think the only thing I would change is what type of music does he turn to. I think you could have the music have some type. You could use song to add to the theme. I think that's the only thing that I would add. He turns to music playing. This song plays. Like, and Tiara, you already know because like you have your vibey playlist, so you're really good at coming up with music that matches what you're creating. So I would choose a specific song with lyrics that match the vibe. So then when watchers are watching this, the music pulls the reader even more into the vibe, and it'd be a mix of clearly he likes listening to it, but then it's also for the viewing experience. It pulls us into the theme. So that's what I would recommend. But yeah, that was awesome. That was really awesome. That's a good first page. I like that. Tape 1, The Gift. Ooh. This does make me think another side note that I think of. Radio is whoever's. It does make me think that that the music should be playing because he puts in a tape. I think I would do this as another foreshadowing since this is tape 1. I would have him stop the news station, pull out a very unique looking cassette tape, have it something unique about it, whether there's some writing on it or whether it's damage or something, and have him play that and have that be the music. Or you could have it go even creepier and have it be like audio recordings or have it be some type of creepy like podcast. You could take it in a couple of different directions. You could do a very creepy self-help podcast, or you could do a creepy like cult thing that somebody listens to. I've seen that happen in a horror movie before. Or you could go creepy horror music. It just depends what direction you want to take it in. That's a good point. That's actually a really good point. What picking a song, it costs money for copyright, especially if you pick something current. So if you have the capability actually, and especially with the way that AI is going, write the song yourself. Create a made up band, and then create just like the first verse of made up lyrics. That's what I would do. Um, and a way to get around that mass toaster, especially with producers, is you could be like, he pushes the cassette tape in and plays the song. And you could put like some lyric, you could put one line of lyrics and say it has in parentheses a Lana Del Rey vibe, or it has an Eagles like vibe, or you could be like, it's like X. So then it gives the production team and the producers an option if they want to pursue it or do something that's more cost effective. Really, really good call out. I'm glad you reminded me. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiara. That was wonderful. And let's pull up Mary's. Mary. All right, perfect. And we got our favorite. It looks like it works now. All right, Mary. So we got our fan favorite, the crystals. And once again, we're not worrying about grammar today. As for this session, I am not worried about grammar in these first page things because this is more focused on a little bit more of the developmental aspect of it. So we got the crystals, and those of you who've been in the community know that Mary's been developing it for the past couple months. Let's see, crystals, it's fantasy. It's about teens discover heritage with a lot of secrets. Crystals. Working title, low fantasy. Prologue. The clans were at peace for now, and King Wyatt was expanding his holidays to include a comparably small castle on the eastern hill overlooking the wide Noname Valley. Wyatt's Glen was to be the new official name. As a result, new housing for the valley people was being constructed. Most locals called it New Town. The old northwestern section of the original town was allowed to fall into disrepair. Just on the outskirts of Newtown, there were still a few original residents who stayed in their cottages. There was at least one family that had other changes to deal with besides relocating. Garrick was said to have died just after his twin babies. Jasper and Danessa were born. No one would say how he died. Their mother, Joanna, would only say he was a good man and very brave, but refused to say any more. Just 7 years later, Joanna lay dying of yellow lung. It was the end of the day, and the warm light of sunset peered in through the window. She coughed into a rag as her sister put a cool cloth on her forehead. Quit! You must tell them. Joanna coughed again. The children, they must know. They must be told. Yes, Joanna, I promise I will take care of them. You must be still. No, the crystals, the children must have them. Again, she coughed and strained to continue. The children must know their heritage. Gwen sat up with a gasp and violently shook her head. No, we swore never to tell them. Their lives would be in danger if anyone knew the truth. Joanna was adamant. Her breathing became even more labored as she made a vain effort to try and sit up. It's for their own good. You know, as I do, one day they will need them to survive. He fought to inhale. When their time comes, they must be told. She was coughing so hard the rag became tinged with blood. She rasped out, promise me. With her bony fingers, she grabbed Gwen's shirt. Promise me. I promise, Joanna. Now lie back. Gwen looked Joanna in her eyes. I promise. Joanna half smiled, took one ragged breath, then nothing. She was gone. Wow, I actually really loved that. That was awesome. Awesome, my friends. So, Mary, first off, that was awesome. I love how far this has come along since we read it way back. I absolutely love this. Love this. There's some things that you've done really, really well. So I think the setup with Joanna, I think this was actually interesting. So we're doing setup with Garrick, and then Jasper and Danessa is they're obviously our protagonists, but we're setting up with Garrick the father. And I think this is actually interesting. I kind of like this. And then just 7 years later, Joanna lay dying of yellow lung. This description is great. It was the end of the day, and the warm light of sunset peered in through the window. And the warm light of sunset peered into the window, but it balances with a yellow lung vibe. And you can totally like imagine it. You're like, yeah, it's like warm. I would almost think that like, because you're saying sunset, I would actually almost consider calling it dusk, because I think the warm light of dusk. No, I mean, sunset could work too. She coughed into a rag. And let's see. So the clans are at peace now for now. And King Wyatt was expanding the holidays to include. I would actually move this out of here. I mean, okay, so technically this is a prologue. Clans were at peace for now, and King Wyatt. So, well, this is interesting. This is just a much stronger paragraph. I would actually relocate this to a different, I would relocate this to chapter 1. I would move this to chapter 1, have this be on the because this is a great first opening line. This is great. Garrick was said to have died after his twin babies, Jasper and Danessa. That would be beautiful because they're our protagonists, and it's giving us a hint of like, oh, there's already death in the first line before Jasper and Danessa were born. And I think this would be a much better opening line. Opening paragraph, when you must tell them. They must be told. Yes, Joanna, I promise I will take care of them. You must be still. And I think if I were editing this, I would say no, the crystals. And I would actually cut this out because I want to get to the point. She doesn't have that much time left. I would actually just shorten this portion because the ending of it is actually so strong. I loved this ending. So I would actually just shorten this into like one or two dialogue because it's kind of like you kind of get the point. When you must tell them, Joanna coughed. The children, they must know. She struggled to breathe. I would get rid of this. And then let's say when you must tell them, I would actually move this. So I'll show you. And I'll put this down here, but actually move this to just the chapter 1. Garrick was said, this is good. She coughed in a rag. Gwen, you must tell them Joanna coughed again. The children, they must know. So we know she's coughing. She struggled to breathe. Yes, Joanna, I promise. I will take care of them. Joanna, we don't need the Joanna because we obviously know. I promise. That's not important. I promise I will take care of them. But you must be still. But you must be still. No, the crystals, the children. And then I would actually do this. And I would get here. No, the crystals. And I would actually start having her have labored breathing. The crystals. And I would do this since we kind of know that she's struggling. We already know she's struggling to breathe. No, the crystals. Children must know heritage. Gwen sat up with a gasp and violently shook her head. No, we swore never to tell them. No. And I think this is important. No, I actually want to put a hard no since she's about to say yes. We swore never to tell them. Their lives would be in danger if anyone knew the truth. Good. I like that. Joanna was adamant. Her breathing became even more labored as she made a vain effort to try and sit up. It's for their own good. You know, as I do, one day they will need them. One day then I would do this because since she's struggling to breathe, this actually buys me in. One day they need to survive. And I would start making her be more struggled breathing. One day they need to survive because this kind of is like, oh yeah, she's trying to get it out. She's dying. She fought to inhale. When the time comes, and I was like, I wouldn't even put when the time comes. It's interesting because this will actually be left up to the living aunt. She was coughing so hard. And I would actually do that. So I'd do that. I would put promise me. She fought to inhale. Promise me. I'd put that here. And I would do promise me 3 times because she said promise Gwen, you must tell them. No, I will. No, I promise I'll take care of them, but you must be still. No, the children. We swore never. Joanna was adamant. Promise. Promise me. I would do this 3 times the rule of 3. Promise me one day one day need survive. He fought to inhale. Promise me. Perfect. I would do that. She was coughing so hard the rag became tinged with blood. She rasped out with her bony fingers and grabbed Gwen's shirt. Promise me. And I think rule of 3s, promise me, promise me, promise me. I promise, Joanna. Now lie back down. Gwen looked Joanna in her eyes. And she already said that Gwen looked Joanna in her eyes with a what's that? A smile, with a bittersweet smile. I promise. Joanna half smiled. Joanna half smiled. Instead, I would say Joanna half smiled. Took one ragged breath, then nothing. She was gone. And I think that's how I would do it. So I just like clean this up a little bit for you, Mary, but this is how I would go about it. Because like I love what you're doing with this. I just did some editing because I think that just makes it a little stronger with still getting the point across. Let's see. You can got the problem. Let me hop into comments. Or you can say I actually like that. Oh, so Toaster liked the opening. So you actually like the world building. The clans were at peace for now. So because what this does is this is opening. And I think once again, Mary, this goes to show feedback can be subjective. So essentially what you would do with something like that, if you get competing feedback, and this was same with feedback you got Marta that you got earlier, test it out with different people. Be like, hey, see what more people prefer. For me, I'm not as much a fan. I like it, but I'm not a fan of it as the opening paragraph because I want to get into something unique about the characters. But fantasy readers do like world building. So like fantasy readers do like this. And this gives us context to the world. So I could see a reason for fantasy readers actually liking it. Yeah, I think that would be a good call out as well. I think if you were editing this slightly, then Gwen, you must tell them, Joanna coughed. The children, yeah, so you're actually right. I think the first time she can do it well. Gwen, you must tell them, Joanna coughed again. The children, they must know their heritage. So actually, I think that would be children, they must know the truth. Gwen, you must tell them, Joanna coughed again. The children, they must know the truth. She struggled to breathe. I promise I will take care of them, but you must be still. No, the crystals, children must know the crystals. And then I would do Joanna took a deep breath. Joanna took a deep breath. Children must know heritage. Gwen sat up with a gasp and violently shook her head. We swore Joanna was adamant. Promise me. Her breathing became even more labored. One day need to survive. Yeah, and I think that's actually better. Good call out, Courtney. Yeah, and I mean that could be because I know your first chapter is if you kept it the same. I know it's the ant explaining the magic system to them, so it actually wouldn't be a bad thing if you did the setup and if you did that world setup in chapter 2. I wouldn't be opposed to that. So, but overall, Mary, this is a great opening. This is a really great opening. I remember when we read the original version of this, and I think just making this moment short and to the point, I think is a huge would be a huge win for you personally. Yeah, and he's like Mass liked it as an opening, so it's like you could still try to make it. You could still do it as an opening, and then I would just get feedback. I would get feedback on how people feel because clearly it could go either way. Awesome. Thanks for submitting that, Mary. I appreciate you. Oh, love it. And I really love seeing your story coming along. I love seeing how much growth it has and then how much progress it's made. Awesome. And I'm super excited, looking forward to seeing as the novel progresses, because I really want to know like some of these mysteries you come up with, and I want to know more about the magic system. I'm also like pretty hooked in where Jasper and Denessa and Moore are at from the last section we read. I'm like, I kind of want to know how they're all going to hook up and go on this like next part of their journey, especially with that one with Garrett. I think the one night I actually kind of actually like not Garrett, but the other guy. Awesome. Excellent. So we have got some amazing work done today. We were able to really review and look at what makes the first page promise. Make sure that if you missed out or you hopped into the stream late, to go back and check this out on the replay, because we dove into what makes the four elements of the first page promise, why it's important. We also hopped into some readings from, we did about four different novels and one manga, which the manga was actually served it very well, and why they did or didn't work. And then clearly we got to do some reviews for some of the different stories. So thank you all for submitting today. It was an absolutely great experience. And as always, drop the comments. Let me know that you get value out of this. And because I want to do more streams that are bringing you value and helping you to finish writing, keep writing, and eventually publish that book. So thank you for joining me today. And as we look towards creative writing on the morrow, if you're looking for something to watch next, down in the YouTube description is a number of our popular videos, but definitely go check out the reason why 97% of writers fail if you haven't seen it already. I uploaded it and put the highlight version together. It's really popular. It's turning out to be the most popular video on the channel so far. So definitely worth a watch if you want to know what are the 8 reasons why most writers fail. So definitely really helpful. It comes up with the reasons and then the strategies for what you can do about it. Awesome. And then make sure to come join us tomorrow for the next episode of the Create Right Now podcast. We're going to be chatting about how to approach your writing with mindfulness and intention with Mike Edwards from A Simple Life podcast, from our very own Mr. Mike Edwards. So we're going to be chatting about mindfulness and intention. And this is going to be a great one, especially in a world full of anxiety, especially when you're dealing with writer's block, and especially when there are so many things that can prevent us from actually writing, or we're ready to write and then we deal with all these things and we block ourselves. So this is going to be a great episode. Make sure to come back and join us tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be here and you're going to join us right now. And don't forget, like the stream on the way out. Help us show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, it's been absolutely phenomenal today. This has been a really great stream. Once again, I love trying out these new styles of streams, so that way we can bring value to you, to the different parts of the process. Let's see. Mass Toaster, that's a really good call out. Kind of wish you focus more on the first draft and less on TLS, since it's the focus of most of the week. Actually, Courtney nailed on the head. I just get sidetracked. I needed to be better about that, but that's actually really good feedback. That's really good. Really, really good. I'll probably do this stream again and I'll format it a little differently, because I actually completely agree with you from a time perspective. I completely agree. So, but thank you for sharing that, because I do want to make sure that I'm spending more time on you guys and less on me, but then it unintentionally came out on Scarecrow. So, but yeah, that was great feedback. LeMay, everyone hit like. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all of you for commenting, for being part of the community. It was really fun. And we had some great conversations today. We had a lot of great feedback, a lot of great people here in the stream, and it was awesome. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.